Return to the past with a warehouse. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. Li Ju traveled through time with the warehouse. 2020th. Li Ju did not accept the family's arrangement to take up a post after retiring from the army. Instead, he went south alone to a third-tier city and opened a security company. Thanks to the rapid economic development, the small mountain city has regained new vitality. The geographical location of the mountain city is very special. The three provinces meet, and the provincial capitals are not far away, all within 300 kilometers of the mountain city. The labor-intensive industries in this area are highly developed. The online business economy is extremely active, and hundreds of millions of express parcels are sent out every day. The people of the mountain city, who can't compare with this, slap their thighs. Since we don't have a production advantage, why not use the geographical location to build a transit center? Facts have proved that this choice is correct. The small mountain city has developed water and land transportation. High-speed rail, ships, and highways are unimpeded. It is very appropriate to build a super large logistics center here. In just 1 year, the mountain city has become a logistics center that radiates 3 provinces and drives the south. Li Ju Security Center is responsible for the civilian armed force guarantee of logistics warehousing. He also had a share in the logistics and warehousing business. At that time, the county magistrate was looking for land, companies, and investments everywhere. He found him here and got him in as a security guard. Although everyone is well fed and clothed now, we are still far from being well off. Our ancestors have been poor people who have to dig for food in the fields and survive in the water. We have a few factories, but we can't compete with other places. To build a characteristic town, light industry has been swept away by neighboring counties. To get rich, we need new ideas. I checked the data of the express company. Their current shipping routes are almost all closed to our county, so I think we should do logistics. Promoting employment is one aspect, increasing fiscal revenue is another, and letting everyone share the dividends of development and common prosperity is the biggest goal. At that time, the county was poor, and the county magistrate who talked about ideals and the future with Li Ju could only bite the bullet and write IOUs to beg for alms. Li Ju was not short of money. In fact, he came to this mountain city only because many of his old comrades in arms retired here. His comrades told him that this mountain city is good, with green mountains and clear waters, convenient life, and excellent people's mental outlook, which is very suitable for life. Li Ju didn't want to participate in the power struggles at home, and he had no worries, so he came to the mountain city and took root. Usually, Li Ju took care of the garden and fields, fished, and opened a small restaurant for 3 days of fishing and 2 days of drying the nets, mainly for the old friends to have dinner together. Li Ju was moved by the ideals of this college student county magistrate. Li Ju, who was not short of money, organized his comrades to open a security company, invested in the storage center, and with his personal investment, he accounted for 10% of the shares. That night, Li Ju received an emergency notice after running, saying that a female supervisor of the storage center was hijacked. He didn't think much about it, went home to change his equipment, and went to the storage center. A large number of people had already gathered at the storage center, and the cordon was set up. The police were confronting the robbers. There were no negotiation experts in the small town, and the experts sent by the provincial capital were on the way, and were rushing here. The robber's psychological quality and vigilance were very high. He was a veteran, and was playing tricks on the police force in the county. Li Ju had personally seen the several warehouses in the storage center being built, and was very familiar with the terrain. Although the robber had already hidden in the corner, leaving only the front as a communication port, Li Ju still had a way to raid near him. The strong beams, narrow vents, fireproof mezzanines and even some pipes. Even the staff might not be able to sort out the route, but Li Ju would subconsciously pay attention to these, and quietly groped his way to the next room along the mezzanine and pipes. These small rooms were actually temporarily separated for employees to rest. They were not particularly strong, and ordinary polymer boards were used to build the walls. The polymer board was very hard, but it was easy for Li Ju to destroy it, not to mention that it was a hollow structure. Li Ju glanced at the group message. The robber's real-time video was not very clear, but he could see a general idea. He pressed the hostage in front of him and communicated with the police very cautiously. The robbers have only just made their real demands. 100 million in cash, an H-96 helicopter, and a man named Kuang Feng. 100 million in cash and a helicopter are easy, but this man is hard to find. Kuang Feng is obviously just a code name. The on-site experts were stalling for time while looking for who this Kuang Feng is. Li Ju quietly popped up in the group. Don't look for it, it's me. Codename FL Special Forces, retired fighter, Kuang Feng. Old friends, don't interfere, you can't deal with this guy. Li Ju was afraid that they would not believe him, so he exposed the past of both sides. 20's I, codenamed Catching B Operation. He was the second in command of the criminal group. His brain was not bright, but his skills were very good. The information about FL has not been declassified, but Catching B Operation was 5 years ago. Some information about it has been released to the public. It can be roughly known that an armed criminal gang on the border was eliminated, and one of the criminal leaders was the current robber. Li Ju said, attract his attention. I will attack him from behind, and I can catch him before he makes a move. Break through the wall and attack? Others may not be able to do it, but Li Ju will definitely have no problem. Several old comrades in the group and those who have been dealt with by Li Ju know that Li Ju's skills are really good, so they all act around Li Ju's request. Negotiation, delay, psychological warfare. No matter how cautious the robber is, he still reveals his flaws. Li Ju has been lying motionless in the next room for more than 3 hours. From the live broadcast, he saw that the robber moved a little out because of his excitement. Li Ju estimated the distance and then smashed through the board wall with his exoskeleton arm. Relying on his memory of the scene just now, he accurately threw down the robber, and the two of them tore on the spot. The robber had a gun in his hand. After Li Ju counter-attacked him, he kicked the gun away with one foot and clamped the robber's arm tightly to prevent him from continuing to take the gun. After so many years, Li Ju's skills have not regressed, but the robber's martial arts quality is far worse than before. He fell behind after a few fights. During the scuffle, the robber recognized Li Ju. It's you. Kuang Feng. Li Ju spat out a mouthful of blood foam. Old buddy, it's your honor to let me beat you twice. The robber grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. It's you. Boss, I'll avenge you. With a loud bang, the earth shook. The last thought that flashed through Li Ju's mind before he was knocked unconscious was, there are people and simple houses all around. Don't let this damn explosive create a shockwave. When Li Ju opened his eyes again, the green mountains and green waters were still the same. The first snow and frost were similar, but the time and space were different. This is the Jiangnan region in the 33rd year of the founding of the Yang dynasty and the 2nd year of Emperor Chengde. It's the time of autumn harvest and winter storage, and the farmers who have worked hard for a year finally have time to stop and take a breath. In Qingshan County, Huainan Road, a heroic and extraordinary stranger came. Chapter 2, Yu Yaoniang, a typical young wife in ancient times. Since Emperor Yang unified the country and named the country Yang, the world has been peaceful for 30 or 40 years. Now the throne has just been passed to the 3rd generation of emperors, who still adhere to the policy of recuperation, light taxation and reduction of service. People's livelihood has recovered quickly, and Yang is thriving everywhere. Mingshu village is a most ordinary small village in Jiangnan. It is located in Nantown, Qingshan County, Huainan Road, about 10 miles away from the town. A Loess road and a not so deep river connect the nearby villages and towns. Mingshu village is named because there is a sweet mountain spring nearby. It is indeed beautiful. Before the war, most people in the village had the surname Huang. Because of the war, 9 out of 10 houses were empty and many refugees moved here after Yang was established. They took root here. Now the most common surname in the village is Huang, accounting for about 30 to 40%, and other surnames account for 60 to 70%. The head of the village is named Huang, who is 42 years old this year and has just held his first grandson. Now his wife is hardworking and virtuous, his son and daughter-in-law are filial and capable, his grandson is fat and white, the weather is good this year and the harvest is good. In short, everything is great, except for a little trouble in the village. Huang Yaba, a carpenter who moved from the village to the town, is going to get married. Getting married is not a big deal, but Huang the carpenter said that getting married is a headache. In recent years, many families in the town and the county have been doing repairs, and Huang the carpenter has made a lot of money, so he has taken root in the town early. But he spends money quickly. He gets his wages today and spends it on wine and meat tomorrow. Sometimes there are not many people who need carpentry work, and he can't help, so he has to borrow money to make ends meet. That's fine. The most important thing is that he has a very bad temper. Once he gets drunk, he wants to beat his wives for fun. He beat 2 of the 4 wives he married before to death, and beat 2 away. If the 2 were beaten to death, Huang Yaoniang should have been sent to jail. However, he hired a good lawyer who made up the story of one of them catching an adulterer and the other stealing money back to her parents' home, and being found out by her husband and accidentally beaten to death. Therefore, they were acquitted, and let off lightly. The 2 who ran away returned to their parents' home. Huang Yaoniang originally wanted to go to their homes with a hammer and scold them, wanting to get them back. However, the 2 had brothers and sisters, and their fists were bigger than Huang Yaoniang's head, so he didn't dare to make a fuss. He cursed a few times, and didn't even dare to ask for the betrothal gift. He went back with his tail between his legs. After returning home, he stayed at home for 2 days, got his wages, and still bought wine and meat to have fun. The last wife ran away last month. This month, Huang Yaoniang took a job that paid more money and earned a total of 20 or 30 taels. When he returned home, he saw that the pots and stoves were cold and the bedding was moldy. He thought about marrying another one, but he didn't want the daughter of a family with many brothers and sisters. There was a family named Yu in Mengshu village. When they heard that carpenter Huang offered a gift of 10 taels of silver and no dowry, they agreed to marry their daughter to him. The Yu family had 3 daughters and 1 son. The first 2 daughters were their own, and the last one was a bought girl who was prepared to be a child bride for their son. She was busy serving the 5 people in the family every day. She didn't have a name, so the villagers called her Yu Yaoniang and Yu Yaoniang. She was very hardworking and could do any work. She lived in a pigsty every day, ate wild vegetable soup to fill her stomach, and wore tattered clothes that barely covered her body. She was busy running around. Yu Yaoniang was now 13 or 14 years old. She was just a bag of bones, and her 2 black eyes were big and bright, which made people panic. Sometimes, when the village head saw that the youngest daughter of Yu's family was being beaten severely, he would be moved with sympathy and try to persuade her. However, you would tell her not to beat her, because she was the village head. If it was not the village head who said that, but someone else, you would roll her eyes and say, "You are a waste of money. I bought you for 100 yuan. If you don't work, I will beat you. You think you are a rich lady." This year, the son of the Yu family was doing well in his studies. The school said that he could at least pass the examination to become a scholar, so the family regarded this only precious child more and more. Looking at Yu's youngest daughter, they felt that they should not have such a child bride. They were discussing selling her to someone who wanted to marry a wife or concubine, or selling her to the county as a maid, when they heard that Huang the carpenter was looking for a wife. When the matchmaker Huang the carpenter arrived in the village, she only talked to the wife of the head of the village. Then she sighed and said, "I'm just a matchmaker, not a lifesaver. It's okay to bring trouble to others, but I watched all the girls in our village grow up. Just tell them that there are no suitable girls in the village. Let them go out and buy one. With 10 taels of silver, he can buy any girl." The head of the village also meant this. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Yu came to borrow a sickle. After hearing what she said, she immediately jumped out and said, "Just buy the one from mine." This morning, the wife of Huang Ersan went to Mrs. Yu and told her in detail about how carpenter Huang liked to beat his wife. After hearing what she said, Mrs. Yu still said happily, "What's the big deal? Whose wife doesn't get slapped by her husband? If I say he is capable, he will naturally beat his own wife. This matter is settled. Sister, don't tell anyone else." afternoon that day, I will ask the maids to finish cooking and let Yaoniang come to pick her up. The head of the village had no choice but to agree. Mother Yu went back happily, and she put her hands on her hips and said to everyone she met, I bought her for 100 taels of silver, and now I've made 10 taels by selling her. I can buy 2 more tomorrow. Isn't that a good deal? People were envious, and those who knew the inside story would only think of it when they saw Yu Yaoniang working from dawn to dusk, and sighed. Yu Yaoniang has a miserable life. Her mother is such a person, and she has to marry such a man. But if you ask Yu Yaoniang if she cannot go to Huang the carpenter's house, they will say, where else can she go? Huang the carpenter's house has no worries about food and clothing. It's a very good place to go. She won't starve to death. Maybe if she's lucky enough to give birth to a child, Huang might change for the sake of the child. That's right, who hasn't been beaten up? At home, she has to be beaten by 2 people, but if she gets married, she only has to serve an old man. If she has a good sense, she can get pregnant early, and the man can abort the child, right? Thinking that carpenter Huang could earn more than 10 taels of silver a month, everyone even thought that Yu Yaoniang had made a profit. This included Yu Yaoniang's 2 sisters, Yu Yaoniang and Yu Yaoniang, who also thought so. Chapter 3, Yaoniang, a young wife who refuses to yield to fate. Although she was about to be sold by Mrs. Yu Yaoniang still had to continue doing housework. Yu Yaoniang got up early in the morning, first released the chickens from the cage, then went out to wash clothes and fetch water, then picked pig grass, and after carrying the pig grass back, she prepared lunch for the whole family, then went to chop pig grass, feed pigs, and chop firewood. The 2 sisters got up at this time, washed their faces with the water Yu Yaoniang fetched, and then left the dirty water there for Yu Yaoniang to clean up. The 2 sisters sat on the doorstep to comb their hair. While combing their hair, they watched Yu Yaoniang, with a white leg exposed, tattered clothes rolled up, and chilblained hands dragging such a heavy and long axe to chop firewood. Thinking that she would go to town in the future, and might have to do all these heavy work by herself, Yu Yaoniang couldn't help but say with some jealousy, hey, little one, you are going to eat delicious food and drink spicy drinks. If you have any delicious and fun things, don't forget to send us some. Yu Yaoniang said without raising her head, it's your turn to go. Are you going or not? Yu Yaoniang said, if he doesn't hit people and looks more handsome, I can. Yu Yaoniang, who are you showing such a reluctant face to? You are not still thinking about my brother, are you? Yu Yaoniang smiled contemptuously. She is so shameless. She misses a man now? She doesn't even take a piss to look at herself. She is not even worthy of carrying shoes for our brother. Our brother will take the imperial examination in the future. Even if he hires a maid, he can't like such a firewood stick. Yu Yaoniang said, that's right. It's a blessing for 8 lifetimes for a rich man in town to like her, and you are still picky. Yu Yaoniang said, then, I wish sister can find such a good fortune. Without even thinking, Yaoniang raised her hand and slapped her. Yu Yaoniang ducked her head reflexively, but the slap did not fall. Yaoniang slowly stopped her sister and said, don't. What if it's broken, and they don't want it? Send it back. Do you think our mother can afford to spend 10 taels of silver? The implication was that for the sake of money, UPO might really let her own daughter marry the carpenter who beat his wife to death. Anyway, nothing could delay her from saving a fortune for her precious son. Yaoniang then withdrew her hand, but she turned around and threw the firewood that Yaoniang had sorted out all over the floor, and then left angrily. Yaoniang had to start from the beginning to stack the firewood while sorting it out and thinking of a way out. She clenched the hatchet in her hand, and her bloodless lips were pressed into a line. She wanted to live. Although she was hungry and cold, although she was beaten and scolded every day, although she was like mud being stepped on by others, although she was just an ant, no, worse than an ant, but she wanted to live. At night, Mrs. Yu and Mr. Yu were calculating how to spend the 10 taels of silver as the betrothal gift, what to buy for their son, how much to give him for school, and finally they could buy the book their son had been reading earlier. No matter what, they had to save another $100 to buy a strong little girl feed her with bran and wild vegetables until she was 6 or 7 years old and could work, and then get her married when she was a little older. Of course, 10 taels of silver were not always available, but at least they had earned all those years of labor, and besides, Carpenter Huang would beat his wife to death every 1 or 2 years. So he would have to remarry. Hearing Mrs. Yu say excitedly, when Huang Yubari marries tomorrow, the little girl we bought should be able to be sold. If she gets married, it will be a good business where chickens lay eggs and eggs lay chickens. It's a pity that it falls into our hands. Yaoniang finally couldn't bear it anymore. She pushed the door open, walked in, took Mrs. Yu's clothes, knelt down and cried, "Mother, please don't sell me. My cousin and I will go to the town to work as long-term laborers. I can earn you 1,000 yuan a year even if I die. Please don't sell me." Mrs. Yu wanted to beat her subconsciously like Chun Niang, but suddenly remembered that the girl was about to be married for a good price. If she was beaten and the girl didn't recognize her, then everything would be lost. So she withdrew the slap, but twisted Yaoniang's ear hard, almost as if she wanted to lift her up, dragged her all the way, pinched and twisted her, and threw her into the pigsty. "If I don't sell you, you'll be eaten for nothing. You're really so bold as to rebel if you're not beaten for 3 days." Yaoniang was thrown to the ground by Mrs. Yu and almost fell headfirst into the trough. Fortunately, she was really diligent, and she could sweep the smelly pig pens of ordinary people. This fall only scratched her legs, which were already covered with bruises, and did not make her smell bad. Yaoniang crawled back and hugged Yu Posi's legs, sobbing and saying, "Mom, I'm scared. I don't want to be beaten to death. Mom, please leave me." Yu Posi was strong and pushed her away easily, saying with a frown, "Even if you die, you have to die in the Huang family. You have to earn the 10 taels of silver for me." Yu Posi said she was going to leave, but suddenly turned back. After all, she had raised a person for several years. Even if it was a dog or a cat, she should have feelings for it. As long as there is profit, she still hopes that she will be alive. Therefore, Yu Posi said reluctantly, "If you don't want to go, it's okay. Now find someone to give me 10 taels of silver as a dowry. You can marry whoever you want, but don't say that you were sold by our family so as not to bring trouble to my Chianao." Yu Yaoniang collapsed on the ground, her face full of despair. Who would pay such a high price to marry her? No, buy her. Buy a clumsy and stupid little girl. Yaoniang was locked up in the pigsty for 2 days. When she was hungry and thirsty, she would go to the pig trough to get some pig food, and then huddle in the corner and desperately think of ways to escape. On the 3rd day, Huang Yuba was going to take her back. Early in the morning of this day, Yu Posi took Yaoniang, who had been hungry for 2 days, out of the pigsty, and gave her an old robe with patches on patches and a pair of worn embroidered shoes that could not be seen in their original color. Although the robe was very old, it could at least cover her from head to toe, so that she would not be tattered and naked. Although the shoes were too small and no one in the family could wear them, they were a pair of complete shoes with soles after all. Yu Posi also asked her to comb her hair neatly and wash her face. After all, she was getting married, so she had to be clean and pleasing to the eye. In fact, Yu Yaoniang had tried her best to dress herself up, but in the cold winter, she could only drink cold well water. She had no chance to use the hot water at home, and she didn't even have a comb. She only dared to secretly wipe her hair and face with the macup water left by her sisters. Therefore, her face and hair were always dirty and greasy. This day was no exception. Yu Po asked her to dress herself up, but didn't give her hot water. Yu Yaoniang had to use a comb dipped in cold water to untie the knots in her hair and rub her face and neck until they were red, and nothing else. When Yu Po thought of the silver that was about to be in her hands, her face was full of joy. She didn't care how Yu Yaoniang tossed herself in the room, but only talked to the matchmaker and the head of the village outside. Yu Yaoniang braided her hair, put on an old robe, and then leaned over the window to look out. Seeing that there was no one around, she took off her shoes that didn't fit her feet and held them in her hands and climbed through the window quietly. She didn't want to escape, she just wanted to go out and find someone who could save her. It doesn't matter whether she is a man or a woman, old or young, whether she is a wife, a maid or a concubine, as long as she will not be beaten to death, as long as she can have a bite to eat, as long as she can be bought for 10 taels of silver. It was the beginning of winter, and there was another light snow. The pines on the mountain were still green, but the top of the mountain was covered with a layer of white snow, and Mengshu village in the mountain was plain. Yu Yaoniang knew that most of the people in the village were poor. There were people who could afford 10 taels of silver, but they would not pay for a little girl like her. She ran all the way to the ferry after she got out of Yu's house. This is the intersection of water and land. There will be merchants passing by, and people going to the county and town will transfer here. Maybe the passers-by are not rich, but compared with the village, the hope of buying her is much greater. The ferry was covered with a thin layer of mist in the early morning, and it was difficult to see the specific situation. One could only vaguely judge by the outline that a boat had arrived, and the porters were busy unloading the cargo. People who were going to the town were waiting for the boat to open, or waiting for the boat to come over, standing on the shore in a scattered manner. Yu Yaoniang rubbed her hands, slipped on her shoes, mustered up her courage, and walked towards the first passerby. Chapter 4. Li Ju, who passed by Mengshu village, picked up a little girl. Li Ju led the horse, hesitating whether to go to the town by water, or go into the mountains by land to hunt. He has been in this world for only 5 days, and he has adapted well so far. In the early morning of 5 days ago, Li Ju, the security chief of the super transit warehouse, encountered a sudden vicious incident. In order to rescue the hostages, Li Ju was involved. Although Li Ju finally rescued the hostages, the bandits pressed the explosion button. In this way, Li Ju and this super warehouse were thrown into this semi-fictional era by the explosion. It is said to be fictional because he has never heard of this Yang dynasty, and it is said to be semi because, as far as it can be seen, many historical celebrities have appeared. When Li Ju passed the first village, he lied that his family fled to the mountains to avoid the war, and now that the elders have passed away, he went down the mountain to see the situation. In this way, his short hair and modern clothes seemed to have a reason, so as not to arouse the suspicion of the villagers. Because he was a strong man, the head of the village was happy to register him, so that he would not be considered a refugee. Of course, the village head was so enthusiastic, and the small bucket of milk powder that Li Ju gave him played a great role. The wife of the village head had just given birth to a son, and because the wife had no milk, the baby grew up limp. Li Ju's bucket of milk powder appeared at the right time, helping the village head solve the problem of feeding the child. Moreover, the can of milk powder was made of metal, which was also very rare. Therefore, the village head happily helped Li Ju to register, and told Li Ju about the current situation for 3 days. When Li Ju said goodbye and left, the village head was still reluctant, and wanted to persuade Li Ju to stay in the village. There was no entertainment in this era, and the poor places in the countryside were even poorer. Every day they just dug for food in the soil. If Li Ju stayed, the first thing he had to do was to raise food. This is not the rural area of modern society. There are no tractors or harvesters. Everything has to be done by manpower. Although there are fertilizers and pesticides, they will always run out one day. You have to fetch water from the river and wash clothes in the river yourself. It's not enough to solve the problem of food and drink. There are also defecation and urination. I dare not think about it. I want to vomit. This is too painful. Li Ju's plan is to settle down in a slightly larger city anyway. So after understanding the basic situation, Li Ju said goodbye to the head of the village, took the road permit, and went to the town. The black horse he was holding was also bought in that village. When the world was first settled, every village and every household was allocated fields. There were relatively few farm tools and livestock, and it was impossible to have them for every household, so some were allocated according to the number of households. This horse was originally supposed to be a war horse. After it was distributed to farmers, it could still pull carts and transport goods during the slack season, but it could only go to plow the land during the spring plowing season. Li Ju liked it at first sight, and named it Aze. As the saying goes, knocking the thin bones forward still makes a bronze sound. Although it is thin and dirty, squeezed together with donkeys, and raised together with pigs, sheep, chickens and ducks, this horse still has its own spirit. Li Ju was very greedy for its body, so he used the last bit of family savings in the mountains, which was about a few barrels of oil, 2 pieces of fine cloth, a can of fine white salt and a few cans of milk powder, plus the favorability of the village chief, to exchange for a horse. Li Ju exchanged a bag of wheat for a few baskets of bran straw, mixed with hay, and beans and corn in the warehouse, and gave them to Uncle Ma as food. Uncle Ma was very satisfied. As long as you have milk, you are my mother. In just 2 days, this stubborn horse got along well with Li Ju, and also acted like a spoiled child and had fun. Riding a horse is also a job that easily tires you. It's okay for an hour or so, but if it's longer or the road is a little worse, it can make your stomach bumpy. Anyway, Li Ju was not in a hurry, so when he encountered a bumpy road that was not easy to walk on, he simply got off the horse and walked on his own. Qingshan County, where Mingshu village is located in the alluvial plain of the river. The river network is thin and small, and interweaves between the villages. Mingshu village is not in a good location. It belongs to the river valley plain area. The flat land is narrow and long with mountains on both sides. It is easy to cause floods during the flood season. However, this unstable river has brought a stable development environment to Mingshu village. Crop irrigation, domestic water, navigation, and transportation. People need these conveniences to survive, so the waterlogging disasters can be accepted. The sound of horse hooves crushed the light frost and mist, attracting the attention of the dock people. At this time, the world had just been settled for a short time, and all places were recuperating. Most of the people on the road were ordinary civilians, caravans, and scholars who were busy with life. People like Li Ju are not common. Dressed neatly, leading a horse, hanging a bow, holding a sword. These elements are enough to make people judge that this must be a young man from a wealthy family, and the vitality between his eyebrows symbolizes that this is a man of vigor and blood, which is enough to make people with bad intentions retreat. When Li Ju was considering his way forward, he was stopped by a dirty little girl. Master, can you be kind and buy me? Li Ju held down the horse's head, stopped, and looked at the little girl who blocked his way, speechless for a moment. She was barely as tall as his waist, skinny as a bamboo pole with an ill-fitting robe hanging on it, and a small head on it. Yu Yaoniang then saw the person she had stopped. He was half a head taller than Gao Erbo, the strongest farmer in the village. He had a serious expression, and suddenly felt scared. Li Ju said, "I won't buy anyone." It was the first time that Yu Yaoniang dealt with a stranger. She didn't expect the other party to be so kind. This gave her great courage, and made her beg again bravely. "I can do any job. Master, please buy me. I don't want wages, I just want a meal. 10 taels of silver to buy a long-term worker. I'm willing to serve you for the rest of my life." Yu Yaoniang's eyes were dark, and seemed very rigid and empty, but they were full of desire to survive. Li Ju then asked, "Where are your parents?" Yu Yaoniang answered very honestly, "My mother wants to sell me, and I'm afraid. He beats people, and my sister in the village was beaten to death by him. I'm afraid of death, so, master, please buy me. It's a good deal. I can find food by myself, I can sleep in the stable, and I can make clothes. Master, you see, your boots are a little damaged, and the saddle is very simple. I can mend clothes. Although I can't make a saddle, I can learn." Li Ju's eyes turned on the girl's shoes, and then fell on her hands, that were twisted like a knot, because she didn't know what to do. The embroidered shoes, that were too small, were dragged by the girl as slippers. Half of the heels were exposed, and there were cracks all over them, and blood scabs mixed with mud were stuck on them, but the girl didn't seem to feel any pain at all. The hands were full of chilblains and scars, but the fingers were clean, but they were frozen purple and black, and bruised, which looked very scary. In modern times, she might still be a primary school student, but in this era, she would be considered a strong laborer. Li Ju thought of what he had seen and heard after traveling through time, and how much effort and luck a person needed to survive at this time. He sighed silently and said, "Get on the horse, and tell me where to go. Don't hesitate. You walk too slowly, and I think you are a burden to me." Chapter 5 The little girl escaped from the mud. Yu Yaoniang was used to farm work, and had handled cows, sheep, and pigs. Although she had never ridden a horse, she was not afraid. She climbed onto the horse's back by climbing the stirrup without Li Ju's help and carefully sat sideways, holding the saddle tightly with both hands. Her hands, which were covered with scars, were white from being squeezed. Li Ju led the horse along the road, pointed by Yu Yaoniang to the village, chatting with her as they walked. "What's your name?" "Master, my name is Yaoniang." "No surname?" "I'm a girl bought by my parents. I have my parents' surnames. They all call me Yu Yaoniang." "Then if I buy you, won't you call me Li Yaoniang?" "Master bought me, so it's up to you." "How old are you?" "I don't know. I heard she's 13 or 14. Li Ju was a little surprised. He had thought Yaoniang was only 7 or 8 years old before. He thought that there must be problems with heredity, nutrition, and sleep, which is why she is so thin and small. "What kind of work do you usually do?" "Cooking, washing, fetching water, planting rice, sewing clothes." "I can do all of these. If I can't, I can learn." "Master, will you really buy me?" Li Ju didn't say anything as they carried the little girl obediently and walked. Yu Yaoniang was very nervous on the horse. It took only a few steps to reach the center of the village. Some people in the village had been urged by Yu Posey to come to Yaoniang, especially the matchmaker. She could make money from this order. Although she sympathized with Yu Yaoniang, she would not give up a penny of the money she wanted to earn. The first person to discover Yu Yaoniang on horseback was the matchmaker. However, the matchmaker had traveled to many villages and towns, and her experience was more than that of ordinary peasant women who only wandered around their own village. When she saw the tall horse and the neat Li Ju, she intuitively felt that this was not a simple matter, so she did not shout, but hurried to find Yu Posey to see. Yu Posey was Yaoniang's nominal adoptive mother, and everything she said was legitimate. Mrs. Yu was happily waiting for Huang Yuba to come and pay, but she didn't expect that when the buyer came, the goods disappeared. Huang Yuba made a scene at Yu's house and demanded the buyer's return. Mrs. Yu was reluctant to let the deal go, so she gathered people to look for the buyer. They found the buyer right away. At this time, they ran into Li Ju leading a horse carrying Yu Yaoniang into the village. Mrs. Yu was pulled out by the matchmaker and looked up to see Yu Yaoniang sitting safely on the tall horse. She stepped forward and was about to pull her off. "You little bitch. You dare to run after rebelling." Yu Yaoniang climbed down the stirrup holding the saddle, holding the reins, and refusing to let go, and replied, "Mom, I found someone to buy me. Master Li said he is willing to buy me and take me away." As she spoke, she gently pulled the hem of Li Ju's clothes and pleaded, "Master, are you willing to buy me?" Everyone looked at Li Ju seriously. I saw a handsome young man with regular features, but he was not a white-faced scholar like a scholar. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, was tall and strong, and had a strong back and waist. In the winter, he was not like other young masters from wealthy families who wore brocade hats and mink furs to warm their hands with a hot water bottle. He was only wearing a robe of unknown material and weaving method. The sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, and his muscles were slightly bulging, showing that he was full of blood. The tall black horse he led was sleek, and looked very proud. The bright red longbow, a tube of white feather arrows, and a long sword hanging on the horse proved that he was a martial artist. Looking at his clean leather boots, the hood was also made of a whole piece of good leather, and the scarf on his head was also a layer of black brocade covered with fur lining. There were several things on his belt that were not copper, silver, gold, or iron, and they were bright and there was no rust at all. In short, after taking a good look, people always subconsciously felt that this person was not easy to mess with. So Mrs. Yu subconsciously shrank back. "Who are you? Why do you get involved in my family's affairs?" Huang Yuba saw that his wife was about to fly away, and he also shouted, "There is a first come first served rule when buying a wife. I came first, why should you buy it?" After shouting, he looked at Li Ju's physique, who was able to fight 3 people, and took another step back. Li Ju saw with his own eyes that the little girl was dragged away by the aunt, and he obviously wanted to hide, but didn't dare to. And then he saw that he was a foreigner coming here and wanted to buy a little girl from the village. None of the onlookers showed disgust, so they knew that even if Yu Yaoniang lied, what she said about her parents selling her to a bad seller as a wife was true. How could a girl of 13 or 14 years old be bought as a wife? You're right, there should be a first come first served. But, Li Ju looked at the pleading in Yu Yaoniang's eyes, and then at the big and strong Yu Posey, and Huang Yuba's almost hateful face, and he had made up his mind to at least negotiate for Yu Yaoniang. I'm willing to pay 20 taels to buy her. Do you want to compete with me? Yu Posey was overjoyed, and the look in her eyes when she looked at Li Ju changed. This is 20 taels. 20 taels. Decades ago, 20 taels of silver could buy 10 kids prettier than Yu Yaoniang. The old bald man with a crew cut sold his fertile wife, such a strong, capable and fertile woman, for only 8 taels. Today, you have to sell it to him no matter what, and I'm willing to give him one more. Carpenter Huang could afford 20 taels, but he was not willing to buy a skinny little girl at this price. 20 taels is enough to buy a pretty girl. Whoever wants to buy a yellow-haired girl has to raise her for a few years before she's good enough. Seeing that Carpenter Huang did not mention the increase in money, Mrs. Yu knew that it was just a deal anyway, and no money had been paid, so it was hard to make a decision. Even if the money had been paid, he could still go back on his word. What did it matter for the sake of 10 taels of silver? So she pushed Yu Yaoniang to Li Ju and said with a smile, "It is our blessing that the master has taken a fancy to our girl. Then this girl will be yours." She did not dare to tell the son of a wealthy family that she was getting married, so she just regarded it as selling a slave. She only asked shamelessly, "This money, you see. Who carries cash when going out? I have to go to the town to find someone to exchange it for banknotes." Li Ju actually had a lot of gold and silver jewelry in his warehouse, but he was alone outside, so it was not good to expose that he was carrying a large amount of gold and silver. Therefore, he just pretended that he was going to exchange for banknotes, and then he could sell some things in the county town at will. That was enough. Even if he took out the money, Mrs. Yu would not check it, and would not dare to accept it. He said he would go to the town, and Mrs. Yu was relieved. So she and Li Ju decided to set out that afternoon to go to the town to exchange for big money. Li Ju looked at Yu Yaoniang, who was in rags. Her hair looked neat, but she had not been washed for a long time. Her shoes needed to be changed, so he decided to stay and fix them up, and then leave in the afternoon. So Li Ju made an agreement with the head of the village, and gave him some money to borrow his house to rest. The head of the village agreed, and Li Ju took the little girl to the village head's house. Before leaving, he heard Mrs. Yu and Huang Yuba say, "Hey, it's not that I don't want to give you my daughter. Look, the other party likes her and offers this amount. But I have 2 daughters. Do you want her? But this little chick was bought for 20 taels. My 2 older girls are better looking and have better personalities than her. They should at least give me 1 more tael, right? You old woman, you are waiting for the sun to fall from the sky for you to eat. How dare a little girl say this amount? If you want to marry your daughter to me, it'll be 10 taels. If not, I won't marry you. Do you think I want to be your relative? You are a crow pretending to be a phoenix. Bah. Huang Yuba can make money, and of course he is not a fool. That's right, Li Ju is stupid, but he is not. Li Ju's face changed, but he didn't say anything. He just took the little girl and the big black horse and followed the head of the village. Chapter 6. Yaoniang wants to please the master. Compared with other villagers' homes, the headman's family seemed much richer and cleaner. Li Ju gave the headman's family a few coins and a few feet of cloth, and secretly gave them a box of red velvet flowers that were common in rural weddings. When the headman's family saw the box of red velvet flowers, they liked it very much, so they simply cleaned up the room where they kept sundries for them to use, and called their eldest son to light a brazier and send it over. They happily said that they would set out 2 pairs of chopsticks for them after breakfast at noon. The utility room was actually an ordinary unused bedroom, but it was full of sundries. After the headman's family cleared out the sundries, it looked very tidy. Li Ju left the door open and did not close it, nor did he draw the curtain. He put his hands by the brazier to warm them up, and while rummaging through his baggage, he looked for something suitable in the storage. As he searched, he kept talking to the girl. "I have never had much contact with girls. If I say something wrong, or if it makes you unhappy, remember to tell me. Li Ju first dug out a few inconspicuous clothes from the pile of ethnic and retro clothes in the clothing warehouse. A set of retro pajamas with laces, quilted with thin cotton, which could be worn temporarily as autumn clothes. A pair of tabi exported to Japan, double layered with fleece. A pair of wide leg pants with laces that could be worn as hakama at this time, made of woolen material. Light and warm, and the length was estimated to be enough to cover the little girl. A knitted sweater made of woolen material, and a jacket in the shape of a jacket, with an inner layer of imitation lambskin and an outer layer of imitation suede, with embroidery on the back and hem, which was beautiful, windproof and warm. And finally a pair of warm cotton shoes, very loose and soft, but not windproof. Because he was afraid of being suspected of why a man alone would bring children's clothes, Li Ju took the clothes in sizes that he could wear, unpacked them, and put them aside, as if he had just taken them out of the package. He said to Yaoniang, "These clothes are all newly made, and have never been worn. Go take a shower, and change into new clothes. These clothes may be a little big. I don't know much about them. You can figure out how to roll them up yourself. These shoes cannot get wet. Wash and dry them before putting them on." At this point, Li Ju took out a large towel and said, "Use this to wipe the water. Don't use other people's handkerchiefs." There are also several domestic beauty brands in the warehouse supermarket. Li Ju pulled out some trial bottles and jars from Zichanlin, including a bottle of shampoo, a box of essential oil soap, and a box of facial cleanser. He removed the outer packaging and left only the bottles and took them out. "This is something like hair oil. I just saw lice in your hair. This thing is not easy to remove. When we get to the city, I want to cut your hair and apply medicine to it to take care of it. If I cut your hair today, I guess you will not be comfortable, and some people in the village will say that you found a bad master. So use this to wash it first. This bottle with white background and green flowers is for shampooing. This box of pink is for washing your body, and this small piece of white is for washing your face. Use it to wash the wounds on your hands and feet, and I will apply medicine for you when you come out. Remember, if it is not clean once, wash it twice, and wash it until the water is clear." Yu Yaoniang took the 3 precious small bottles and boxes and nodded seriously. Li Ju smiled and said, "Don't be shy. This stuff is not valuable. Even if you accidentally break it, it's not worth anything." As he said that, he put out another row of lotions and creams, which were delicate and small, and could make straight men faint. "When you have packed up, come over and apply these on your face. You won't be afraid of the cold wind blowing on your face. I'm not familiar with this place. You can ask the headman where you can take a shower. Come back after you're done. Go quickly." Yu Yaoniang held clothes, a towel, and 3 bottles and boxes, and walked out dazedly to ask the headman where to take a shower. The headman's wife was preparing food in the kitchen. When she saw Yaoniang coming, she asked, "What's wrong? What did your master ask you to do?" Yu Yaoniang said softly, "The master asked me to take a bath and change into new clothes." The headman's wife said, "There is a big wooden basin in the firewood room and the water tank is at the back. If there is not enough water, go to the well at the back and fetch 2 buckets of water." "Hey, is this the clothes your master gave you?" Yaoniang nodded. "Yes, the master also gave me a big sweat towel. I think I can make a shirt by cutting it." The village head wiped his hands, flipped through the things in Yu Yaoniang's hand, and said, "You have met a good family. Look, the cloth is so thick and new. We don't have such good cloth to make clothes, but the master made a bath towel for you. The colors of these clothes are also pretty, and they look new. I used to wash clothes for people in the county town, and I have been to the county magistrate's house, but I have never seen such soft and light material. Look again, there are hidden patterns on these pants, and the small jacket and pants worn inside have jacquard patterns. The cloth is woven so densely, it must have taken a lot of effort, and it looks so beautiful." Yu Yaoniang said, "It's just that the craftsmanship of the person who made the clothes is not very good. Although the stitches are even and the edges of the clothes are well locked, there are too many loose threads, and the corners are also very bad. This is a good thing. If everything in his family is good, why did Master Li buy you back? Even if he likes you now, you are not as good as the others in his family, and he will forget you after a long time." The village head's wife opened the soap box again and saw that the box was made of unknown material. It was much stronger than mulberry paper, but not as hard as wood. It was colorful, with a window scene painted on the pink background. Inside was a beautiful woman who looked like a real person, wearing gold and silver. They didn't recognize the words. When they opened the lid, they smelled a burst of floral fragrance, but they couldn't tell what flower it was. It was like osmanthus but not osmanthus, like jasmine but not jasmine, and it was very fragrant. The village head's wife was surprised. "What is this? I haven't seen anything like this even in the county." The master said, "It's for washing the body, and I don't know how to use it." The village head's wife then asked his wife and son to cook, and he took his mother to the utility room next door, dragged out a large wooden basin, and filled it with water. The two of them studied how to use these things for a long time, and finally used them after some hesitation. After Yu Yaoniang washed for the first time, the water was all black. She washed 3 or 4 times until the water was clear. She was considered done. After all this trouble, the head of the village family could be said to be very envious of Yu Yaoniang. The 3 things for washing hair and body were really convenient and clean. After washing, the whole room was filled with fragrance, and the body felt smooth and comfortable. The head of the village family helped Yaoniang dry her hair. She was surprised at first that the big towel absorbed water very quickly and was more suitable than ordinary cloth. When she saw that her hair was fluffy and clean, she felt her scalp itchy. She also wanted to buy this thing for washing hair and face, but she guessed that the things of a wealthy family would be very valuable, so she only dared to think about it. Yaoniang put on all the clothes that were too big for her. She pulled the hakama up to her chest, tied the straps around her shoulders, and tied up the trouser legs, just like the overalls worn by modern people. Just this pair of trousers made her whole body warm. After putting on a soft and light shirt and a coat, Yaoniang felt that she would not feel cold, even if she was asked to run around the village for 10 laps. Yu Yaoniang warmed her hands in the pockets of her coat and said, "This is really warm. The master is so good to me. I don't know how to repay him." The head of the village was still studying the big bath towel and said, "Just do what the master tells you to do. But if he hits you, remember not to endure it. Who in this world is a slave and does not get beaten and scolded by the master? Even his own sons and daughters will have a time to be beaten with sticks. Just don't be stubborn." Hearing this, Yu Yaoniang thought about it, took out a chopping knife from the firewood pile, and cut her good black hair. Chapter 7 Li Ju, a loving father. Yu Yaoniang moved suddenly, and before the headman's wife could react, her long hair, still wet with moisture, fell to the ground. The headman's wife hurriedly put down the towel, picked up the hair, and said angrily, "Child, what's wrong with you? Why are you twisting your hair for no reason?" Yu Yaoniang was also reluctant to part with her hair, and replied, "The master just said that there are fleas in my hair and wants me to cut my hair so that I can apply medicine. I'm afraid of being gossiped about, so I plan to wait until I get to the city to cut it." "I think you are right, auntie. The master is so good to me, and I must naturally do what he tells me." The headman's wife said, "I'm also afraid that you will be at odds with your master. I know that you have a stubborn temper, but I'm afraid that you will offend your master. You go and see what your master is going to do, and I'll go and see if the food is ready. Yes, the master saved my life and is so good to me. I will absolutely not go against the master's wishes." Yu Yaoniang was not used to short hair, and she felt a lot lighter. She stroked her hair and was as energetic as a young man. She bowed to the head of the village, took the towel and her dirty robe, put on her new cotton shoes, and happily went back to the utility room to find Li Ju. While Yu Yaoniang was taking a bath, Li Ju was not idle. He went to get a basin of water and put it there. He also found some daily necessities, a cup for drinking water, a toothbrush and toothpaste, a small towel for wiping the face, medicine for wiping wounds, and gauze for bandaging. After finding everything, Li Ju opened the package and put it in a beige, printed canvas shopping bag, ready to give it to Yaoniang. While putting it in, he carefully thought about what else he needed to prepare. After thinking for a long time, he took out a small nail clipper and hung it on the chain around his waist. Then he thought that if Yu Yaoniang was really 13 or 14 years old, there would be a monthly worry. He did have sanitary napkins, but if he just took them out for Yu Yaoniang to use, how would he explain that he was a grown man walking on the road alone, like a treasure chest with everything, and even had such a magical thing as Mother Chen? Isn't this perverted? Just as he was entangled in these, Yu Yaoniang came quietly. Master, I've packed up. Li Ju looked up and saw a pretty girl. Of course, it was not the case that she could become a beautiful woman by washing her face and changing her clothes as shown in novels and TV dramas. First of all, the clothes Yu Yaoniang was wearing were men's clothes, and the dark color looked very gloomy. In addition, a child who worked in the fields for many years and was malnourished would not get tanned unless he was gifted and sunburned. Otherwise dark skin, skinny limbs and hunched body were almost standard. It was obvious that Yu Yaoniang did not have the talent of a heroine. She now looked like a fussy little girl. The only thing worth praising was the dark stubble on her head, which was uneven like a dog had gnawed it, but it was as strong as its owner and had a strong vitality. Yu Yaoniang took the initiative to cut her hair. Li Ju did not say anything, but he was very happy to meet such a sensible little girl. Since she had dared to escape and ask for help in the morning, Li Ju had guessed that this girl might be difficult to manage because she was fierce and capable of execution. But now that he saw that she was quite well behaved and tactful, he thought that it would not be too difficult for him to take care of her, and he felt a little happier. Li Ju pointed to the chair opposite and said, "Come here, I'll take a look at the wound on your hand and teach you how to bandage it." "Oh, thank you, sir." Yu Yaoniang put down the things in her arms, walked to the opposite side of Li Ju, sat down with her knees together, and placed her hands on her knees neatly, not daring to move. Li Ju pulled up the little girl's left hand. The gaps between her fingers and nails were all clean, and the cracks also looked like they were soaked in water. Only the two deep cuts on her forearm had blood scabs on the outside, but there was still blood inside the cuts. Li Ju washed his hands, and then the first thing he did was to cut Yu Yaoniang's nails. "We don't have long nails. You see, I don't have long nails either. Long nails get in the way and they are not clean. When they grow too long, just cut them. This kind of small scissors is specially used to cut nails. I have other uses for it, so I'll give you this small one in the future. Just cut it like this. See, it's fine. Be careful when using it, don't hurt your hands. First, wipe the wound with this bottle of brown liquid, then apply the ointment in this bottle, and then bandage it. Small wounds should be covered with this thing called a band-aid, and larger wounds should be bandaged with gauze. Pay attention to this, and this is sticky, so don't touch the wound. Where did you get these two big cuts on your arm? Why are they so deep? Don't worry about the scabs that have already formed, it's still bleeding. It's the same. First wash them with brown liquid, then apply the medicine, and then bandage them." Li Ju frowned at the two longer wounds on the little girl's arm. Fortunately, it is winter now. If it was midsummer, they might have become inflamed and infected. After taking care of Yu Yaoniang's right hand, Li Ju let go of her hand and let the girl deal with her left hand herself. He watched from the side and pointed out if there was anything wrong. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Li Ju, Never Compromise. Yu Yaoniang was very smart and learned very quickly. After a while, she had cut her nails and applied medicine in a very professional manner. She did not answer Li Ju's question because there was really no room for her to answer. With so many injuries, who could remember the origins of each one? She did not want to lie. Li Ju asked her once when he was teaching her how to organize her clothes, and when he saw that she did not answer, he just turned the page. Yu Yaoniang's intelligence exceeded Li Ju's expectations. With such a long high-waisted men's hakama, Yu Yaoniang tied it up like a dress, which was quite free and easy like a modern girl wearing a boyfriend's shirt, and it looked better than wearing it as pants properly. After instructing Yu Yaoniang to deal with herself as well, Li Ju avoided her and left. There was a little smell of food in the yard, not really aroma. Li Ju had lived in the village for 2 or 3 days, and he knew how they cooked. His face changed immediately. He quickly found a box of chopped pig's trotters, a cud goose, a small box of lard, some seasonings and a bottle of rice wine from his large storage, and went to the kitchen with them in his hands. The head of the village was cooking with his daughter-in-law. The pot was steaming a staple food made of taro, beans and brown rice. Because it was processed very roughly, and the variety itself was not a high-yield modern variety, it looked very wild. Li Ju was still within the acceptable range for this meal. At this time, there was no need to think about eating rice. Rice was indeed one of the main food crops in Kingshan County, and the world was indeed relatively stable, but ordinary tenants and small farmers obviously could not use refined white rice as their staple food. The best rice had to be sold. Even farmers who had their own land only dared to add a handful of brown rice to the rice pot during festivals. But the dishes in the pot were totally unbearable. The headman's family cooked a fish, but there was no wine to remove the fishy smell, and there was not enough oil for frying, so they could only mix it with green onion leaves, ginger slices and perilla, and threw in a few watered chestnuts. A pot of steamed salted fish cubes was warming on the stove. There was a side dish, which was pickled cabbage that had just been taken out of the jar. Li Ju put down the pig's trotter and fat goose in his hand and said, "I saw someone killing a pig on the road, so I bought a leg. His family also had a goose, so I bought it too. Combined with the spices and good wine I brought with me when I went out, it was delicious. The little girl and I can't finish these, so it's just right to add dishes to Brother Huang." The headman's family looked at the fat red and white pig's trotter, swallowed his saliva, swallowed back all his rejections, rolled up his sleeves, took out the well-cooked fish and taro bean rice to warm them, washed the pot, and put it back on the stove. Li Ju took control of the kitchen. He saw that Li Ju didn't know how to cook a farmer's stove, and couldn't learn it in a short time, so he left the village head's son to help cook the fire, and the village head's family and daughter-in-law to help prepare some scallions and ginger. The prepared seasonings were sorted and put away. After blanching the pig's trotters, they were taken out and drained. The pot was heated, and a large amount of lard was added to make the village head's family feel distressed. The scallions, ginger and garlic were fried. Then star anise, cinnamon and bay leaves were added and fried until fragrant. After the rock sugar melted, the pig's trotters were added to fry until sugar color was obtained. Then rice wine and the fried spices were added and stir-fried together, and then water was added to stew. Another pot was used to stew the goose. Similarly, blanching was done first, and then a large amount of oil was used to stir-fry the spices. Then the goose meat was added and repeatedly stir-fried, and cooking wine, oyster sauce and chicken essence were added to enhance the flavor. Finally, water was added to stew. The 2 pots began to simmer. Li Ju gave the remaining rice wine to the headman's wife and said, "This is good wine. Please heat it up for me and my brother. I used my sister-in-law's firewood to prepare 2 big dishes for the little girl today. It's really not nice. I have 2 wild rabbits that I just caught in the mountains. Please accept them. I wanted to take them to the town to exchange for a dish, but I don't know when I can get to the town. It would be a waste to leave them there, and it would be troublesome to take them with me. It's better to give them to my sister-in-law to add to the dishes, so that I can save some money." The headman's wife refused several times, but Li Ju insisted on giving it to her. So the headman's wife accepted it, and had a better impression of Li Ju. 2 fat wild rabbits, the meat is edible, and the skin can be used to make a leather hat for Huang Erson. Li Ju told the headman's son to watch the fire, so that the pot would not burn. When they were stewed, he would serve them. He also asked for a pot of hot water, and carried them back to the utility room. Yu Yaoniang had already tidied herself up, and then squatted at the door obediently waiting for Li Ju to come back. Li Ju almost bumped into her when he opened the door. Seeing her waiting pitifully, he frowned, but didn't say anything to her. He just added some hot water to the water she had just used to wash her hands, and then shaved off the remaining hair of the little girl, and asked her to wash her bald scalp with soap, but he poured out the remaining hot water to dry it to quench his thirst. Yu Yaoniang touched her scalp, and forced back the tears that were about to fall. Li Ju took out a small hat with rabbit ears, and put it on her. "Don't cry, you have lice on your head. This is the fastest way to get rid of lice. Wash it diligently these 2 days, and you will be able to tie it up next summer. By then, Li Ju thought about it and positioned himself in the role of uncle. Then you will wear the flowers that your uncle has bought you a ticket for. Okay. Yu Yaoniang nodded and said, I'm afraid that the master will ask me to become a nun, and I don't want to be a nun. Silly child, if you want to go, I can't bear to let you eat vegetarian food. Li Ju tapped her forehead, looked at her, and saw that it was almost time, so he asked her to change into her little cotton shoes and go out for dinner together. Chapter 9. A very good meal. The head of the village had already prepared the meal and put the fat goose and pig's trotters in a large basin and poured wine for the 3 men. The women ate at the other small table, and while eating, they looked at what the male host wanted to add to his table. The fat pig's trotters, the goose legs and breasts of the fat goose were all served to Li Ju's table, and the part of the steamed rice with more brown rice was also given to Li Ju's side. The belly of the fish was on this side, and the head and tail of the fish were on the women's side. This was considered that the head of the village loved his wives and opened a small table for them. Otherwise, such good meat and dishes would usually be offered to the parents-in-law and the men first, and the rest of the women could only eat the leftovers, and if there were no leftovers, they would not eat them. The 3 of them sat down to the table. The village head Huangerson toasted him first. You are such a distinguished guest. We really have nothing to entertain. We not only ate your delicious food and drank your wine, but also made you cook for us. I'm really ashamed. I will toast you first, brother. Please don't despise me, my poor brother. Li Ju didn't like to drink rice wine. He took a glass and didn't drink it. He said, I have to travel in the afternoon. I'm afraid of delaying my work. I won't drink the wine. I will leave it for my sister-in-law, if you like it. This wine has a little aftertaste. Please don't drink too much. The alcohol content of modern brewed rice wine is slightly higher than the common rice wine in ancient times, and of course it is more mellow and smooth. Huang Erson was even more grateful to Li Ju, and he promoted him from little brother to great philanthropist. After 2 glasses of wine, he and Li Ju opened their hearts to each other. There are no secrets in this village, and there are not many things worth worrying about. The most recent ones are Huang the carpenter's marriage, the 2 families in the east of the village fighting for the land, the water source won this year, but he doesn't know what will happen next year, the tax collector he will meet when paying rent in the village, whether people will freeze to death in the village this winter, etc. Li Ju listened carefully, occasionally looking at Yu Yaoniang who was eating at the table of women. Yu Yaoniang had never had a full meal since she was born. This was her first time to taste the taste of meat. She took the goose wing that the head of the village gave her and nibbled it in small bites, wishing she could chew and swallow even the bones, and licked the grease on her fingers carefully. After eating this piece of goose wing, the head of the village was feeding his grandson and didn't pay attention to her for a while. Yaoniang didn't dare to pick up other dishes, so she just ate the rice with the soup. Li Ju didn't like fatty food, and he hadn't treated himself badly these days, so he gave some of the food in his bowl to Yu Yaoniang and said, don't be too restrained. I'm a rough man. I can't take care of too many things, and it's difficult for me to take your ideas into consideration. If you're hungry, you should tell me, and you should take the initiative to ask what you want to eat. Yaoniang nodded and took a big bite of the soft and sticky pig's trotter. Li Ju touched her head, went back to the table, and asked in detail where to exchange money in the town, and what to pay attention to. The head of the village and his son talked about everything, and the meal was a great pleasure for both the host and the guests. After the meal and the leftovers had not been removed, Upo came. She asked impatiently when we would go into the city, and took a piece of meat from the bowl of roasted pig's trotters and ate it. After eating a piece, she wanted to take another one. The head of the village's daughter-in-law hurriedly brought in the rest of the 2 large dishes. Upo wiped her mouth with her hand, looking regretful, as if she regretted not bringing a bowl. Yu Yaoniang held Li Ju's clothes, and Li Ju asked her to find some insoles to pad her cotton shoes, so that they would not slip off. After packing up, he wanted to set off. Before leaving, Li Ju was in a dilemma again. He was riding a horse, so he couldn't let the little girl walk. On the contrary, he didn't want to let the little girl ride the horse while he walked. Besides, he also brought Upozi and the matchmaker. So in the end, the village head asked the hunter to harness a cart and drove the donkey cart to take Yu the matchmaker, and Yu Yaoniang, while Li Ju rode a horse himself. Li Ju's luggage was very light, but it looked heavy, just to cover up the fact that he took miscellaneous items from the warehouse. He packed up his bag and hung it up, but Yu Yaoniang grabbed his clothes unexpectedly. "Master, please let me do something. If I'm useless, I'm afraid you will sell me." "Okay, then you help me hold this bag of small odds and ends." Li Ju took off the bag full of dry food and handed it to Yu Yaoniang. "There are food in it. You have to protect them, otherwise I might starve." "Hey." Yu Yaoniang happily climbed onto the donkey cart with a large bag that was a little bit heavy, but not too heavy. Li Ju gave the hunter who drove the cart 30 coins. The hunter usually took a cart of people and goods to the county town and only charged 30 coins. This time, there were fewer people, and the livestock would not suffer. It was a good deal. On the way to the city, Li Ju wondered whether he should settle down in Jiangnan. It was not a big deal to live in the open with a little girl, and he also needed to manage and make friends in order to start his own business in ancient times. They walked through several villages and saw many things along the way. Li Ju always felt that he could bring something different to the world, such as feeding more people or having clothes to wear. While he was sorting out his thoughts, Yu on the donkey cart was not idle either. Yu Yaoniang had just got on the cart, and Yu glanced at her. She could see that Li Ju treated Yu Yaoniang very well. Her ill-fitting clothes were very precious, and it was just right for her to take them back to the head of the household to make a robe to wear. And that pair of shoes, such big shoes, bulging. I don't know how much cotton was stuffed in them. They must be very warm. Take them and add leather to make 2 pairs for Xiaoniao to wear. And she was holding a package in her hand. I don't know what good things were in it. In Yu opinion, Yu Yaoniang would naturally listen to her. She had been obedient for more than 10 years. How could she rebel? Yu Yaoniang's things were naturally hers. Yu did what she thought of, saying, "Let me see what good things are in there that are worth your nervousness." While she was about to search, Yu Yaoniang hugged the package tightly in her arms and clamped Yu hand tightly. "This is the master's thing. You can't touch it." Yu didn't expect that this little girl who had been bullied by her family for 10 years would dare to resist. As if she felt the mockery and ridicule of the matchmaker and the hunter, her old face flushed red, and she reached out to hit her. "Bitch, you dare to contradict your mother before your wings have grown hard?" Chapter 10 Master, please don't abandon me. Yu Yaoniang was a soft persimmon that could be easily bullied. That was true, but she had to do so in order to survive. Now she had the confidence to resist her adoptive mother. Yu Yaoniang blocked Yu's slap with her arm and hit back without any hesitation. "I'm now Master Li's maid, so naturally I only recognize my master, not my mother. Besides, I'm also a maid bought by you, so you are not my real mother." Yu was furious. She grabbed her arm with one hand and tried to pull her hat with the other hand, cursing her with dirty words such as bitch girl, bitch, ungrateful and ungrateful wolf and so on. The matchmaker and the hunter were worried that the donkey cart would be overturned by them, so they tried to appease them, making a lot of noise, and Li Ju also noticed it. Li Ju turned his horse's head and walked back 2 steps, using his whip to block Yu. "I bought all the clothes for Yaoniang, including the things in the package. It's worth 70 or 80 taels of silver. You can take it, but you have to pay the difference first." Yu took her hand back embarrassedly. This little girl is so stubborn that she even dares to contradict her mother. "You'd better be careful and don't let a servant make a fuss." Li Ju smiled and said, "In that case, I won't buy her. Please take her back. Are you willing?" Yu smiled and didn't dare to say a word. She stayed there honestly. Yu Yaoniang was a little uneasy, but she didn't dare to show it in front of Yu. In fact, her heart had been in a mess for a long time. They passed through the town on a bumpy road. They didn't stop to go to the county town for fear of delaying the return trip. The matchmaker went to the familiar servant in charge to wait for the door first, while Li Ju asked where the most famous cloth shop was and sold a few pieces of cloth. At that time, the width of common cloth was generally limited to more than 2 feet. When dyed with natural dyes, except for black, indigo and other colors. Bright colors were not easy to dye and faded easily. The cheap satin cloth that Li Ju took out was a modern imitation silk with a width of 1 meter and 4. Rich and bright colors, smooth to the touch, extremely thin and durable, which was simply better than any other cloth in the city. Li Juning said that this cloth was not woven from silk, but it made the cloth shop owner marvel. In this world, apart from silk, there are only natural materials such as linen, cotton, and wool. He dared not even think about weaving such thin and smooth cloth with these materials. It was the end of the year, and wealthy families bought some new cloth to make new objects and new clothes, which was just right for selling good materials. One roll of cloth sold for 10 taels of silver. Li Ju sold him 5 rolls in total, and now he took 25 taels of silver and 5 taels of money. The remaining 20 taels were sent by the shopkeeper to a boy to take with Li Ju to the agreed place to directly hand over to Yu Posey. After Mrs. Yu took the money, the matchmaker had already arranged for the servants to do the work. After the procedures were completed, Yu Yaoniang's indenture was in Li Ju's hands. Yu Yaoniang was relieved and smiled at Li Ju. Li Ju stuffed the matchmaker with some hard-earned money, but did not take Yaoniang away immediately. Instead, after Mrs. Yu and the matchmaker left, he gave a small clerk from the Ministry of Households a handful of money and asked him to cancel Yu Yaoniang's slave status and her indenture so that she would be treated as a distant relative of Li Ju. After finishing this matter, Li Ju took Yu Yaoniang away from the clerk's house and asked a helper to find out if there was any place to stay nearby. The helper knew Qingshan County like the back of his hand. For the sake of money, he talked about several hotels, tea houses, and wine shops in the city. Yu Yaoniang kept holding the package that Li Ju gave her and walked around Li Ju like a little duck. After Li Ju sent away the hangers-on and was about to go to the hotel, she said, "Master, you won't abandon me, will you?" Li Ju folded his hands and did not answer the question. Instead, he said, "You were fine like that on the road just now. I don't need you to be submissive and look at my face for everything." Yu Yaoniang counted on her fingers and said, but, Master saved me. I want Master to be happy. In the future you will know what to do to make me happy, but it will definitely not be seeing you follow the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, or be chaste and quiet." Li Ju took the package from her hand and tied it to the horse, and then lifted the little girl who weighed only a few taels onto the horse's back. Yu Yaoniang swung her legs. She didn't understand what Master Li said, but she heard in the future. There is a future, which means that the master will not drive her away or abandon her, and that is enough. As they carried Yaoniang on his back, and Li Ju led the horse, walking on the blue stone slabs at dusk towards the quietest hotel in the city. Chapter 11. Ancient Social Environment. Li Ju and Yaoniang stayed in the hotel for a few days. Every day, they would order a pot of the best wine and sit in the corner all day, listening to what was happening outside. Qingshan County is a prosperous and peaceful county. It is rich in polished rice, has good water and mountains, raises good chickens, ducks, and geese, and has seafood from rivers and lakes. It can be called a land of fish and rice. The local people are also simple and honest, and there are almost no bandit troubles. Of course, the world has been peaceful for a short time, and land annexation has just begun to show a little bit of signs. It is the time when those who till the land have their own land. With fields to serve, there are naturally fewer bandits. Occasionally, there are some robberies and human trafficking, but they are only sporadic. The business here is also relatively developed. There are many caravans of silk, porcelain, and northern and southern goods that are transported at each Edo under the jurisdiction of Qingshan County, so business and travel are also quite prosperous. Li Ju is very satisfied with this place. He decided to settle down here now and take root first. Taking root means settling down and buying property. Li Ju had no idea about the local prices. He asked Yaoniang, but Yaoniang didn't know the situation in the city. She only knew that the best paddy fields in their village cost 4 taels of silver per mu, and the price of polished rice was 8 coins of silver per stone. A good field could produce more than 2.5 stones of rice a year if it was carefully taken care of. The price of inferior fields was very low. Now the imperial court's tax on farming is 15% of the tax rate, including other miscellaneous taxes and corvée. farmers have to pay about 2/10 to 3/10. If it is a field planted by oneself, one can harvest 70% to 80%, but if it is a field rented from a landlord, one has to pay another 30% to 40% in rent. Scholars can be exempted from taxes, and juran can be exempted from taxes. Once a scholar or juran is passed, someone will pay to register their field under his name. Therefore, everyone in Yaoniang wants to take the imperial examination, and the literary style is the most prosperous. After summarizing the little girl's words, Li Ju thought about the current per acre yield and taxes, and sighed. The farmers are still suffering. They are busy all year round, and they can only get enough food and clothing. Once they encounter natural disasters or man-made disasters, their families will be broken up. After sighing, Li Ju asked Yaoniang again, "You said that you were bought by the Yu family's woman. Why did your family sell you? Did they have no food to eat?" Yaoniang shook her head. "My mother gave birth to a younger brother, and she was afraid that my sister and I would need dowries, so she sold us." "You have a younger sister? Was she also sold to the Yu family?" Yaoniang continued to shake her head. "I heard from the human traffickers that she was sold to a brothel." "What is a brothel?" I asked my mother, and my mother beat me and said I was unclean. Li Ju raised his eyebrows. "It's not a good place. If I have a chance to find out about your sister in the future, I will buy you back and reunite the sisters." Yaoniang showed a melancholy expression. "But we have neither a name nor a surname, and we don't know where we were sold. How can we find out?" Li Ju subconsciously wanted to comfort her, and he retracted his hand halfway after extending it. "We will meet again, if we are destined to. By the way, I have called a few hangers-on to inquire about the dental business. I have to go out to buy a house and land tomorrow. I'm worried about you staying in the hotel alone. Why don't you change into men's clothes and go out with me?" Yaoniang's hair grew a layer of fluff, and with her face that looked only 7 or 8 years old, it was reasonable to say that she was a little boy who had just grown hair, and it was not abrupt. Yaoniang had never been to the city before. She had been staying in the hotel these days to change her clothes. She was also very curious about the outside world. She hurriedly agreed with the year and said, "Master, I have mended your clothes. Do you think they fit? Also, the weather is getting colder day by day, and the master does not have enough winter clothes to wear. It's just right. Master, bring some cloth tomorrow and I will make some clothes for you, okay?" Li Ju asked her to call him brother several times, but it was useless. Yaoniang insisted on calling him that, so Li Ju let her do it. In the past few days, Li Ju asked Yaoniang to alter his clothes to fit him. I don't know how she did it, but she rolled up the long sleeves and hems without using scissors, and tucked in his fat waist. After the alteration, he put it on, except for a little swelling. There was no other problem. Yaoniang also said that he could wear it when he grew up, and he could wear such a big set of clothes for 10 or 8 years. Yaoniang worked very quickly. In 2 days, she finished altering her own clothes, and also took a few of Li Ju's clothes to modify the stitches. In her words, "I don't know where the workmanship came from. It's not good at all, and the sleeves and the size are too small. People will laugh at it, and it's a waste of such good cloth. Master, you see, it's worth buying me. I make better clothes than this. Although I can't embroider, I can learn. The flowers on it are not very good." As she spoke, she looked at Li Ju's expression, fearing that she would offend him if she said something wrong. Li Ju didn't care. Anyway, those clothes were bought from a national-style clothing store. They were all machine-embroidered goods, very cheap, and indeed the workmanship was not very good, much worse than Yaoniang's meticulous handwork. The style was even worse. At that time, the dress sleeves were required to be able to be rolled up to the elbows, which was called elbow back. Generally, daily wear should also be able to be rolled up to the wrists. If it was done like modern fashion, it would just cover the wrists, and the body was made more close-fitting, and the sleeves would shrink when the hands were pinched, which became the standard of stretched elbows for the poor in ancient times. Li Ju knew that it would be a good thing to let Yaoniang think I'm also useful at this time, so he let her toss. After all, she was only 13 or 14 years old, and was almost the same as his sister. Yaoniang tied a knot while nagging, and then excitedly filled the iron with boiling water to iron the seams, and it was done. Li Ju took it and put it on. The large goods with different sizes instantly became tailor-made high-end clothes. This girl really has two hands. Seeing Li Ju's satisfied expression, Yaoniang was also happy. She twirled her fingers and jumped twice, saying, "All I need is a few outer clothes to wear when I go out. Master, don't worry. I will make them beautifully for you." Chapter 12 How important is a local boss? The next morning, Li Ju got up first and went to the kitchen to heat up the frozen steamed buns he had taken out. Then he went to the yard behind the hotel to do a set of boxing. When he came back, breakfast was ready and the water was boiled. He took it upstairs to wake up Yaoniang. Yaoniang was at the age of growth, and Li Ju gave priority to her growth needs, such as nutritional intake and sleep duration. After washing up, the two of them had breakfast in Li Ju's room. This was the 5th morning they had been together, and Yaoniang had eaten all kinds of breakfasts, but she still felt it was not real. The fluffy and soft steamed buns and cakes, the hot steamed buns of various flavors wrapped in broth, the fragrant corn nest, the sweet brown sugar steamed cake. She had never heard of them before, but now she could eat them with an open stomach, which was like being in heaven. How could the frozen steamed buns be as delicious as the freshly made ones? But Li Ju didn't care about the taste difference, so he was lazy. Seeing Yaoniang eating so happily, his appetite improved a lot. Li Ju's family didn't have any rules about not talking while eating or sleeping, so Yaoniang wouldn't be so restrained. She just had to make sure she didn't choke. Therefore, Yaoniang ate a small cornmeal steamed bun with great care, and she could chatter like a little magpie again. "Master, what is this corn? Is it expensive rice? It's really fragrant and sweet. I've never seen it before. I know how to make steamed buns, but they are not so soft. Where did you buy them? I'll learn how to make them for you. And this coconut milk purple rice bowl. I've heard of purple rice, but what is coconut milk? Master, am I too noisy? It's great to be so lively. Children are cute because they are lively and sensible." Li Ju handed her the boiled egg with a smile. "Eat another egg, and we'll set off. Don't worry, I don't mind your noise. When we have our own home and grow our own food in the future, I'll teach you how to make it." "Thank you, Master." Yaoniang took the egg and smiled brightly. After breakfast, Li Ju and Yaoniang went out with their valuables. The hangers-on outside the door had been waiting there for a long time. Li Ju threw him a homemade pancake from the hotel kitchen. The hanger-on took it and put it in his arms, smiling and saying, "Master, you are such a kind man. Haha. Thank you for your reward. Master, do you think we should go to see the house first or the fields and shops first?" Li Ju first took the two of them to the next door to hire a carriage and called a driver. He said slowly, as the saying goes, you should get married first and then start a career. Let's look at the house first. The permanent population of Kingshan County is only more than 30,000, and the main families are located in the riverbend plain formed before the Zai River flows into the sea. Li Ju's request is that the house is a little bigger, in a busy place, and the neighbors should be kind. At this time, there is no contract spirit to talk about. Li Ju is an unfamiliar outsider, and it is obvious that he is a fat sheep. If he is not careful, he may be cheated. Therefore, Li Ju took a detour to the place where he sold cloth last time and coaxed and deceived the shopkeeper of the cloth shop to bring him along. The cloth shop owner held up 5 fingers and said, "It's agreed that you will sell me 50 pieces of cloth at a 30% discount. A gentleman's word is as good as a promise." Li Ju also held up 5 fingers. "Until I find out that I have been cheated or deceived, my cloth will only be supplied to you." As soon as Li Ju entered the door, the shopkeeper of the cloth shop smiled like a flower. The cloth that Li Ju gave him last time was sold at 3 times the price. There were many people scrambling for it. Even people from Jinling and Kayantang came to buy the colorful satin that was thin, fine, shiny, not fading, not prone to wrinkles, bright and correct in color. He was worrying about how to satisfy those guests who he couldn't afford to offend, and Li Ju came to him by chance. The two agreed that the shopkeeper of the cloth shop would help Li Ju to consult about the house and property. Li Ju would only give him a supply of cloth. If he bought the house, he would give him 50 rolls of 7 taels of silver per roll, and 100 rolls of other specially woven cloth rolls every year. But if there are any problems with the house and property purchased by Li Ju, the cooperation will naturally end, and the cloth shop owner will return all the profits from the cloth. Of course, they can regret at any time, and this kind of cooperation is particularly unreliable, but it's enough to be strong at this moment. The cloth shop owner's surname is Chen, and he calls himself Chen the shopkeeper or Ziran Chen. Ziran means weaving and dyeing. He is very happy to use his own industry as a nickname. Ziran Chen is a local tyrant. How many people in the city can weave cloth by themselves? Almost all of them buy cloth from outside. They know how many people are in a family, how many masters and servants there are, and how much silk, fine cloth, and coarse cloth they use. Even if you don't necessarily buy from him, the county town is so small, and there are only these people doing business. They know what each family is like. The hangers-on and the pawnbroker accompanied Li Ju to look at several houses that met his requirements. Ziran Chen pointed out all the faults of each house. The well of this house had been dirty for a long time, and the water was muddy. If they wanted to drink water, they had to go to the public well, and if there were many people in the family, it would take half a day to fetch water. The neighbor next door to that house was annoying, borrowing money here and there all day long, and if his pigs ran away to other houses, he would ask them to pay compensation, and if other houses' pigs ran away to his house, he would also ask them to pay compensation. Next to that house was a widow, with her son running the business, and other things were fine, but the reputation was not good. Li Ju was a middle-aged man, and if he lived there, rumors would probably spread. There was a murder case in this house. That house was not bad, but for some reason, water would accumulate when it rained. He talked so much that the pawnbroker's face turned green. Finally, it was decided to choose a small and exquisite garden on Guang'an Street in the south of the city. It covers an area of 3 acres and is surrounded by a hillside. The garden is particularly large, with rockery, flowers, stones, ponds, and waterside pavilions. The most wonderful thing is that there is a spring. Although the spring water is only a narrow channel that can barely overflow a ditch, it is a real good mountain spring, warm in winter and cool in summer, sweet and clear, and more comfortable than digging a well. The garden is 5 deep, with 2 very beautiful embroidery buildings, and a total of 56 houses including the pavilion and other buildings. At this time, according to the official price, the tax deed can be easily bought for 600 taels, but because the garden is very large and has that mountain spring, it costs another 300 taels more. Ziran Chen said that the garden had not been taken care of for a long time and looked desolate, so he estimated the price at 800 taels. The original owner had moved to Jinling and had sold off his ancestral property over the years, leaving only this exquisite house. The large garden and few houses made it more expensive than other houses, so it had never been sold. Li Ju was very satisfied, especially with the large garden and the beautiful spring, and decided on the spot to buy it. Chapter 13. Li Ju buys a house, a profiteer. Li Ju directly took the silverware in the warehouse to exchange for silver bills and added a little money. The next day, the house deeds and other things were all in hand, and he could prepare to clean up the house and move. Although the silverware made by modern technology lacks some handmade charm, it has achieved the ultimate in details. Maybe it can't catch up with the top silversmiths of this era, but it can beat 80% of the less top silversmiths. Rigid but standardized, precise, symmetrical, meticulous. These requirements that require a lot of mechanical labor are the strength of modern industry. In addition, the silverware is also inlaid with various artificial gems, which really sells glass at the price of gems. The package of silver tabla and silver jewelry sold for more than 1,000 taels. Excluding the 800 taels for buying the house, there are still 200 taels left, which Li Ju used to ask someone to make some modifications to the house according to his own wishes. First of all, the barren garden should be leveled, the dead trees and weeds should be removed, and new planting and replanting should be carried out. This is not the time to plant trees, so just clear the land of the orchard, dig out a pit to dry, and prepare to plant when the time is right. Nets were set up around the periphery of the orchard, and Li Ju planned to raise some chickens, ducks, and geese in the place farthest from the water source. Other places that were not suitable for planting trees were cleaned up like farmland. This would be the breeding base for potatoes, corn, sweet potatoes, and high quality vegetables that Li Ju smuggled from modern times. The pond and spring were dredged, and the pond was built with stone foundations. Li Ju planned to use it to raise fish. The house was renovated, and all the worm-eaten and moldy places were cleaned and repaired firmly, and then neatly painted with putty and wall paint. The tiles were replaced with new ones, and the old tiles were stored by Li Ju. He had not yet figured out how to use them, but they would definitely be useful. The furniture also had to be remade. At Li Ju's request, all were made according to modern usage methods, with retro decorations and styles. There were a total of 58 houses. Except for pavilions, stables and other functional places that did not need to be repeated, the rest of the houses were replanned by Li Ju. All houses larger than 1 centimeter in size were divided into 3 connected rooms, and those slightly smaller were divided into 2, and those smaller were not divided. Each house had to have an independent door that could be locked. Every 10 small rooms shared 2 toilets, and a septic tank was built under the toilet with stones. The tank was very far away from the water source and pond, and the bottom and the surroundings were built with thick stones and then plastered to prevent water pollution. There was only one kitchen, which was built at the earliest, and the food for the temporary workers was provided. At that time, labor was really worthless, so the selling price of a person might not be as high as that of a pig. Li Ju only said that he would give 20 yuan for meals, and people who came to ask for work would fight for their time. In the end, Li Ju asked the dental shop to select and choose, and selected 20 or 30 people to work. The workers all said that Master Li was a first-rate good master, who gave them 3 meals a day, and the work was neither heavy nor tiring. Even if they worked at home, they couldn't get such a good thing. People here generally only had 2 meals a day, and farm hands basically got up earlier than chickens, and slept later than dogs, and they only had some wild vegetable bran to fill their stomachs. If they met a not so kind master, one of the 2 meals would be thicker, and the other meal would be made by just washing and mixing the bucket of wild vegetable paste from the previous meal with water. As for meat, there was no need to think about it. Even ordinary people would only dare to put a little shredded pork and meat oil in their own homes during festivals and good years. Who dared to eat meat on ordinary days? Who could afford to eat meat? Even the most doting families would only give their children an egg every 10 days or half a month, and even this one egg was earned by scrambling. When you come to Mr. Li's place, apart from other things, first of all, you can have 3 meals a day, get up early to do some preparatory work, then have breakfast, which is 2 donuts as big as your face, fried with flour and oil, with a lot of oil, and hot tea to keep you full. You go to work after eating, and you are called to have the second meal, after working for 2 hours, which is rice cooked with beans, taro, millet and the like, occasionally with some brown rice in it. You can eat as much as you want, and then each person is given a big bowl of vegetables with soup, or corn bones, or chicken and duck racks, cooked with bamboo shoots, mushrooms, pickles and other dried vegetables, and one bowl is enough to make you full with vegetables and meat soaked in bean rice. In the evening, you get off work after half of the U time, and there is another meal after work, which is bean and taro rice cooked into porridge with 2 eggs. Many people simply couldn't bear to eat so much, and they would secretly save some to take back for their families. The working hours here were not long. They got up at Maoshi in the morning, and officially started working after eating at Chenshi. They took a break after half an hour at Yaoshi in the evening, and they were allowed to rest for half an hour for lunch. They really valued manpower. However, Master Li had very high requirements for workers. If they were a little perfunctory, they would be sent back to redo the work. They would not be counted for the redo work, and they would only eat and drink. As for the workers, some thanked Master Li for the food, some would say that he was a good person who was only a spendthrift, and some would just think about slacking off, delaying one more day, to eat one more day. Then they would soon be told by other short-term workers to the agent in charge of recruiting workers, and they would be replaced without saying a word, and those lazy and gossiping people would regret it too. Late, while the house was being cleaned up and renovated, Li Ju grabbed the dyeing and weaving Chen to accompany him to buy land. Li Ju's plan was to develop some small-scale primary industries in the future, such as textile weaving and dyeing, which could replace energy with human labor, in addition to promoting seeds, farm tools and farming methods. Therefore, it would be good to have 100 acres of good farmland, and it would be better if the environmental conditions were different. In addition, it would be more convenient to build factories and dormitories by enclosing more barren wasteland, and it would not waste arable land. So in the end, Li Ju bought a piece of wasteland in the south of the city on the recommendation of Chen, the dyeing and weaving man, occupying a small hill, which was at least 600 or 700 acres in size. The mountain was relatively barren, with nothing but trees. After it was leveled, various buildings could be arranged. There was a water source at the foot of the mountain, but the water quality was not very good, and it could only be used. There were dozens of acres of excellent fields along the river, but they might be flooded during the flood season when there were heavy rains. The land on the mountain was scattered among different people. When the country was just founded, the emperor issued an edict saying that whoever reclaimed the wasteland and cultivated it for 3 years would be given the land. So there was a master family. It was winter, the land was empty, and there was nothing. Li Ju offered a total of 2,000 taels, and those people moved out very happily, leaving even the old house to Li Ju. This time, Li Ju was not in a hurry to sell things for money. Qingshan County was so small that, if he released another batch of silver jewelry, it would probably impact the local silver price. Therefore, Li Ju chose to ask the dyeing and weaving Qin contact to send some extremely rare items in the warehouse to Jinling or Qiantang for sale, and promised a 3/10 profit. Dyeing and weaving Chen was not very interested in gold, silver and jewelry. Although these things were valuable, they were not rare, and it was not easy to sell them for 2,000 or 3,000 taels at a time. However, he was very interested in the other things that Li Ju took out. Several sets of books with very good bindings, which were made by someone unknown. The copyright pages were removed, with the characters just the size of a fly, clear and neat, and many articles that had never been seen before. These sets of books alone could be worth as much as 500 or 600 taels in the homes of several literati and scholars. Waterproof, rainproof and lightweight flints with pictures of beauties made of unknown metal, which would produce fire with a light press. Although they could only be used 100 times, the box itself was also extremely precious, and each one was worth 10 or 20 taels. He took 120 pieces, sent 70 to Jinling, and 50 to Qiantang, and it was still not enough. These were all rare treasures, and it was not surprising to have them. After all, human power could do it. But Li Ju also said that he would give 20 large watermelons, which was extremely outrageous. Even if rich people now have ice cellars to store food, it is impossible to store fresh vegetables that are easy to perish until they are still fresh. How to get watermelons at this time? Only immortal means can do it. A watermelon is worth more than 20 or 30 taels at this time. There are also fresh pink lotus roots, cantaloupes, and honeydew melons, which are also very valuable. The key is that these fruits and vegetables are relatively durable and easy to carry. Who can take out such rare things to entertain guests during the new year? It's a face-saving thing to tell others. Li Ju directly gave a cantaloupe to dyeing and weaving Chen and asked him to try it himself to see if he wanted to talk about this business. Dyeing and weaving Chen came to say that he had done this order the next day and immediately asked someone to compete for customers. After the negotiation, Li Ju pulled a car to him for inspection. On the same day, it was caught by big merchants from Jinling, Qiantang, Laozhou and other places. A total of more than 3,000 taels were sold, and dyeing and weaving Chen earned more than 300 taels in one transaction, which was almost enough to equal the income of a good year in previous years. In addition to fresh fruits and vegetables, Li Ju also handed over the promised 50 rolls of colorful satin, actually satin, to the dyeing and weaving Chen, who took them all for himself and prepared to sell them slowly at a high price before and after the new year. After everything was packed up, it was almost the end of the year, and Li Ju moved into the new house with Yu Yaoniang. Chapter 14, Li Jiu's home. The most luxurious house Yu Yaoniang had seen in the village was made of bricks and stones. She had never left the village in her life, and she had only heard about the gardens of wealthy families from her friends, who had gone to the city. This was the first time she had seen such a large and beautiful house. From the moment she saw the wall, she didn't know where to put her eyes. Li Ju first went to the stable to tie up the horse, then put down the hay and dry food, and then he and Yaoniang looked around the whole house. Along the way, this was a typical Jiangnan courtyard, with white walls, black tiles and blue stone floors, bright and exquisite. Li Ju chose to live on the side closest to the vacated land for farming. The temporary workers knew that this was the master's own place, so they put in extra effort to tidy up the 2-acre house in a particularly neat manner. Behind this place is a fruit forest on the hillside, and in front is a field. The spring is under the rockery extending from the fruit forest. Walking along the path outward is a pond. Li Ju opened the door and looked at his future residence. He was very satisfied. According to his requirements, a living room, a study, and a bedroom were built. On the second floor were the flower hall and terrace. A small room was left empty for a bathroom. No toilet was arranged for the time being. An independent toilet could be built when the conditions were right. For now, several families would share the clean room. He also arranged for temporary workers to build a septic tank for composting, in preparation for intensive cultivation in the future. Yes, several families. Li Ju had never thought of living alone. In his plan, this house was the place where his dream would take off. Yaoniang followed Li Ju and looked around. Seeing that Li Ju put his luggage on the big table in this room, she realized that this would be the main house in the future. She also put down her small package, touched the rattan bed made by Li Ju in the living room, showed an expectant expression, and said, "Master, can I sleep here?" Yaoniang certainly didn't know that this was a chair for the living room. It looked like a bed, so she thought it was a small bed for the maids of wealthy families to sleep at night, and thought it was her own place. She touched the thick cotton mattress and liked it very much. Just by looking at this foot-high mattress, you can tell how soft it is. She has never slept on a soft bed. Li Ju shook his head. "You are not young anymore. It is not appropriate for you to live with me. I have seen so many houses just now. Do you have a room you like? Pick one and live in it." Yaoniang felt a little strange when she walked along just now. The layout here is different from that in the countryside. Each large room is simply divided into 2 or 3 small rooms. The layout is similar, with a bed, a table and chairs, just like the guest rooms in a hotel. Although it is a bit sad that Li Ju did not let her stay with him, Yaoniang was particularly happy to have her own small house. Although Yaoniang did not want modern people to be baptized by such high housing prices and almost crazy about houses, people's pursuit of the word settling down has never changed from ancient times to the present. So Yaoniang pointed to the small room closest to Li Ju's house and said, "Can I live there? I want to be closer to the master so that I can serve him. By the way, is the master going to open a hotel?" Li Ju took out the key of the small room and gave it to her. "Go and put your things in order. I'm not opening a hotel, and you don't need to serve me here for the time being." He saw the excitement in Yaoniang's eyes turn into anxiety and changed his words. "I'll take you to the corner gate later. We'll buy some things and say hello to the neighbors. I'll come back in the evening and teach you to cook my favorite meals." "Okay." Yaoniang happily took the key and went to the opposite door with the package. Li Ju shook his head and began to think about what he wanted to put out facing the warehouse supermarket. He planned to use the household storage as an excuse to drag the cloth back from a trip after a while. It would be a good time to go outside to see if there were any poor people in the cold winter who could be brought back as tenants or workers. It is better to move the stored grain from the warehouse first and then collect it in the harvest year to replenish it. It also needs to be disguised as being shipped back from outside. Other seasonings, oil, salt, etc. are all taken from modern times. After all, the ancient ones are too expensive and the quality is also average. Who knows how many impurities there are in the green salt. In addition, there are some daily necessities. Before Li Ju can figure out a substitute, he has to use the ones in the warehouse first. Fortunately, this large transit warehouse has everything, and the storage is not small, which is very comfortable. Li Ju first found a few sealable cork bottles, and put the bulk shampoo and shower gel in them, which is about enough for 2 adults to use for a winter. In addition, there are large towels and the like. and he took a set of spare ones for himself and Yu Yaoniang. For the mattress, I used the cotton mattress bought here, and the quilt was still made of the light and warm camel hair, cashmere, and down quilt in the warehouse. The 4-piece set is not needed, and the cloth can be handed over to Yu Yaoniang to make it later. For clothes, only close-fitting clothes are used, and the outerwear is also handmade by Yu Yaoniang. Take 2 pairs of shoes for indoor wear and 2 pairs for outdoor wear. When the weather is good, and it is not raining, you can wear ancient 1000-layer sole shoes. Yu Yaoniang's shoes can either be bought outside, or made by her. As I said before, it would be strange for a grown man to take out brand new things for a little girl. Li Ju poured a few bags of grain from the warehouse, and put them into the big jars. There were also some beans, taro and other things left in the rice jars. Look at the kitchen again. The stove and floor are clean. There are only a few pots and pans, and there is not much firewood left, which also needs to be purchased separately. So Li Ju made a list, deleted and revised it, and took the things in the warehouse according to the list, and took the rest with Yu Yaoniang to buy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, A Corner of Mortal Life. As the year was drawing to a close, Kingshan County had a lively atmosphere. The harvest had come, the pigs had been slaughtered, the chickens and ducks had been slaughtered, and people had some free time, so they could set up so many snack stalls. There were people writing couplets, drawing New Year pictures, and setting off firecrackers, selling all kinds of handicrafts, sharpening knives and scissors, repairing furniture, and mending pots, stikers and stoves. The small county had become interesting. Yu Yaoniang's eyes were not enough, and everything she saw was new. Li Ju bought her melon seeds, candied buns, a little tiger hat, phoenix head shoes, and small firecrackers. He hung Yu Yaoniang with all the things, and she had no more room, so he went to do business. The first one to come was the home of Ziren Chen. The door of Ziren Chen's was crowded with people setting up stalls, leaving only a passage for people to pass through. Ziren Chen was kind-hearted, knowing that they all wanted to make a few more bucks and buy a few more pieces of meat at this time, so he let them squeeze in. Anyway, people who wanted to buy cloth had to come in, and they would come by themselves without him shouting, and the few stall owners outside would not delay things. The vendors also know that they cannot push their luck too far and have to set up their stalls properly. They also have to be careful not to get anything bumped into or dirty in front of their doors. It's not that they really value the place, but they are afraid of getting their stalls damaged and having to pay for it, and they don't have the money to do that. When Chen the dyeing and weaving heard from his clerk that Li Ju had arrived, he ran out in a hurry to greet him. "Oh, Master Li is here in person." He then hurriedly ordered tea to be poured and fruits to be served. "Our shop is small, and we don't have anything good to treat you. Except for this tea, you must try it. I wouldn't take it out easily." Li Ju took his mother inside and sat down, and said with a smile, "It seems that my rolls of cloth are selling very well. We are all doing so well, I'm not afraid to tell the truth. I originally planned to sell them out before the Lantern Festival, but I didn't expect them to be sold out as soon as they were put out on the day of the Little New Year. The shopkeepers who helped us bring the goods to Jinling last time all have people watching them here. I'm afraid that master will take out some good stuff again. Finally, my guess is right. Isn't this a good stuff?" Chen the dyeing and weaving said with a smile. There was no need to hide the news of the shortage of cloth from Li Ju. Sooner or later those people would find out about Li Ju, and it could be hidden for a while but not forever, and there was no need to offend people in vain. Dyeing and weaving Chen said again, "This cloth is very good, but it's a pity that it's a bit monotonous. With such good dyeing and such good weaving, it would be great if there were thick, satin, jacquard, printed ones. If you have it, Master Li, don't keep it to yourself." Li Ju smiled and said, "It really exists. After the new year, I will send a few different ones. You can get whatever you want. There are also many special cloths that I guarantee you have never seen before." Dyeing and weaving Chen was itching to get some, but when he asked more, Li Ju stopped talking and only said that the elders in the family who could weave cloth were gone, and he could hardly remember how to weave it. There were probably several thousand pieces of cloth left, and they would be gone after they were sold. Dyeing and weaving Chen felt very regretful, and Li Ju looked a little disappointed. The two talked for a long time about the cloth specially supplied by Li Ju, and Dyeing and weaving Chen asked again, "Brother Zion, you came here today, you must have something else?" Li Ju nodded, "Yes, buy some cloth, change the curtains and mattresses for the family, and make 2 sets of clothes for me and my sister." Dyeing and weaving Chen said, "No matter how good the cloth is, it can't compare to your cloth. It's cheap. My family has to make more than a dozen mattresses, quilts, pillows, etc. this year. It's not cost effective to use that kind of cloth." Li Ju himself planned to make a few cool shirts with homespun cloth, and the same for Yu Yaoniang. The cloth in the warehouse is very good, but it is all special woven cloth that is not seen in this era, and the price is very high. Except for necessities and winter clothes and underwear, Li Ju is prepared to sell all the others slowly without impacting the market. Dyeing and weaving Chen took out all the cloth from his family for Li Ju and Yu Yaoniang to choose from. Li Ju selected several black, blue, and grey cotton and linen cloths for himself, preparing to make Taoist robes, long gowns, and brown robes, etc. He also selected half a cart of cotton cloth for quilt covers, etc., and asked Yu Yaoniang to buy the patterns she liked. Anyway, they were cheaper than his own cloth, so he let her buy them herself. Li Ju only discussed with Dyeing and weaving Chen when to send the cloth next time, and what kind of cloth to send. Yu Yaoniang subconsciously still chose those blue and grey black cloths. Seeing this, Li Ju picked a piece of pink material from the variety that an auntie had just bought for her daughter, and put it in the pile that Yu Yaoniang had chosen, saying, "You are so young. You will look good if you wear bright clothes." Yu Yaoniang then picked a roll of tender pine colored cotton cloth and a roll of light willow yellow linen cloth. Putting them together, they can always make a few beautiful skirts. After choosing all these, Yu Yaoniang remembered that the young talents she saw along the way liked to wear pretty colors such as pink and moon white, so she picked a roll of lotus colored satin with 4 season flowers to make a robe for Li Ju. Considering Li Ju's height, it was probably just enough to make one robe. After choosing the cloth, Dyeing and weaving Chen gave a base price and hung the bill on the table. Li Ju could either pay a sum of money every month and slowly deduct it from the account, or come directly to settle the bill. If he was not happy to come, he could send someone to tell him, and he would naturally ask someone to come to his house to pick it up. Li Ju then knew that there was such a good thing that was easy, so he prepaid 10 taels of silver and put it in the account. Dyeing and weaving Chen was a little surprised. All wealthy families acted like this, so it was clear that Li Ju really didn't care about the affairs of the household, so he didn't even know this. After keeping the account and checking the accounts, Dyeing and weaving Chen called the clerk to have the packaging completely sealed with wax and made an appointment with Li Ju to deliver it to Li's house tomorrow morning. After leaving the cloth shop, Li Ju went to buy 2 carts of firewood and charcoal. This place is far from the city, in a more remote market. The firewood seller is a farmer from the countryside, about 40 years old, wearing a ragged sheepskin coat with the white lining turned outward, squatting in the sun to drink cold water. The charcoal seller looks older than the firewood seller, with grey hair, charcoal black hands, and even dirty clothes. When someone comes to ask about the price of charcoal, he hangs his hands and says 3 cents. For fear that the charcoal powder on his hands will get on others. Li Ju noticed their hands and feet. They were so thin that their skin was wrapped around their tendons, and their cracked wounds were as long as a foot, but they didn't care and still squatted in the sun with their hands in their pockets, watching the people passing by. Even though Qingshan County is a land of fish and rice, and even though the farmers who go to the market here will not be too far away from the more prosperous urban areas, they are still just barely out of the level of starvation and freezing to death, and are still far from having enough food and clothing. Li Ju first asked how much the firewood cost, and the farmer gave a real number, 5 coins per bundle, and a cart of about 20 bundles, so it only cost 80 coins to buy all of them. Yaoniang knew that this was the real price, and it would be cheaper in the countryside, or she could exchange it with something, but this was in the city, so it was reasonable to pay more. So Li Ju took both carts, and did not bargain with him, and gave him 200 coins as he was told. The farmer was so happy that he kept bowing and thanking him. Li Ju asked him to wait and help deliver it to his home, so the farmer waited there honestly, and when Li Ju bought the last cart of charcoal, he also bought a few rice jars, vegetable jars, bags, and boxes, and then came to Li's house. Chapter 16 Li Ju's new clothes. Two diligent farmers moved the firewood and charcoal into the Li family's warehouse, stacked them neatly, and covered them with a waterproof oilcloth provided by Li Ju. It took only a quarter of an hour. Li Ju was very satisfied and paid the money in full. He said, "It's very cold today. I don't know how long these firewood and charcoal can be used. If it's convenient for you two brothers, can you deliver some to your door every 10 days or half a month? Not only will I charge the original price, but I will also give you extra travel expenses." The two farmers hurriedly agreed. Who in the city doesn't have a place to buy or chop firewood? It's not easy to have a stable buyer. Not to mention a delivery every 10 days or half a month. I'd be willing to do it, even if it's in vain. After deciding here, Li Ju packed up the rice, noodles, spices, grains, vegetables, etc., and called Yaoniang to show her how to cook. "I won't be destitute for the time being, so we should be willing to put oil and meat in the dishes. Don't just wipe the bottom of the pot, and don't be reluctant to put meat." Li Ju poured a spoonful of oil into the pot, and poured out a large amount of oil to moisten the pot, and then poured it out to fry the spices. In an instant, the aroma of garlic, ginger, and chili was stimulated by the hot oil. Yaoniang sneezed 3 times in a row, but she thought the smell was extremely good. Li Ju then poured the chopped meat into the stir fry, and added fine salt, soy sauce, cooking wine, etc. in turn. When the heat was almost right, he took the pot out of the pot and poured it aside, then wiped the pot clean and washed it with hot water, and then added lard to stir fry the cabbage that was smuggled from the warehouse. There were only 2 people eating, so Li Ju simply made 1 meat and 1 vegetable, and fried 2 eggs with a dish of pickles. Because he was worried that Yaoniang couldn't eat spicy food, Li Ju made 2 portions of braised pork with sauce, one of which had only a little seeded chili skin, which was first put out of the pot, and the rest was added with a normal amount of chili. Yaoniang held her small bowl, carefully picked up her portion of shredded pork one by one as if counting, and stuffed it into her mouth solemnly. Then her eyes narrowed with pleasure. It was so delicious. It tasted better than the pig's trotters and goose meat at the headman's house last time. Although Yaoniang tried her best to cherish this bowl of shredded pork, her chopstick movements became faster and faster, until she was full, and she was still reluctant to part with the broth in the bowl. However, looking at the broth, Yaoniang started crying again, which made Li Ju panic. He quickly put down his bowl and chopsticks to find a handkerchief to wipe her tears. He suspected that he had put too much chili and stimulated Yaoniang to cry. Yaoniang sobbed and said, "Master, you are so good to me. I'm so afraid that you will not want me in the future." It turned out to be because of this. What an insecure child. Li Ju said, "Yes, if you only want to stay here and eat meat by looking at my face, then it will be scary. You don't know whether I will abandon you in the future, whether you will have other family members, whether you will suddenly be out of money. So, you have to learn to make money by yourself, so that even if I don't want you in the future, you can still eat meat and wear a big cotton padded jacket." Yaoniang said, "I will learn. But what should I learn?" Li Ju said, "Learn to recognize words first. To be a man, you must first understand the truth, and secondly, you must have knowledge. Start with recognizing words. I will teach you 10 words every day. If you can write them all, I will give you an extra meal of meat." If Li Ju said this when they first met, Yaoniang would probably suspect that Li Ju's brain was broken. She is a girl and a maid, why does she need to learn to read? But now Li Ju is so good to Yaoniang and respects her very much. Yaoniang has never experienced what it feels like to be a human. It should be said that most people at this time have never experienced what a real human is. This feeling is wonderful and beautiful. Li Ju was the heaven, the earth, and the faith to Yaoniang. Yaoniang would believe whatever he said. He asked Yaoniang to remember 10 words a day, and Yaoniang would never let him down. Yaoniang nodded heavily and said, "Yes, I will learn to read with you." On the first day, the 10 words that Li Ju taught Yaoniang were the first 16 words of Zhenguangzian Wen. Li Ju taught 15 words, and only let Yaoniang memorize the first 10. Li Ju first copied out the entire text of Zhenguangzian Wen, and told Yaoniang the general idea. After Yaoniang understood the meaning thoroughly, he asked her to recite, while looking at the words one by one. Yaoniang had no cultural foundation. She started with 1,000 characters and 3-character classics, which might not be as friendly as the plain language of Zhenguangzian Wen. After learning Zhenguangzian Wen, and having some foundation, she would not feel tired when learning other famous works. Yaoniang was not very talented in learning, but she had an advantage. She listened to whatever Li Ju said, and did what she said without any compromise. 2 days later, Yaoniang had memorized the entire Zhenguangzian Wen, and could write simple words crookedly on paper. While learning to read, she also made several quilts, and several new clothes for Li Ju and herself. As soon as she put on the new clothes, she felt like it was the new year. Yaoniang had grown a head of black and pretty short hair. She carefully combed her short hair into 2 small tufts, and clipped a pair of cute little butterfly hairpins as decoration. The spring wings of the butterflies flashed and looked very beautiful. She made a coat with pink satin, a skirt made of pine-colored cotton cloth, and a light yellow vest. The pink and cute little girl no longer had the shadow of the skinny and timid yellow-haired girl. In order to make it easier to go out, Yaoniang also made herself a men's long gown, which was made of leftover scraps of cloth, and looked like a paddy field gown. Paddy field gowns and patchwork gowns were very popular in Jiangnan, and it was very common for Yaoniang to go out in this outfit. The tallowest robe Yaoniang made for Li Ju was a lilac-colored robe with cotton stuffing inside, which was very generous. Li Ju could also wear 2 sweaters and trousers, and tie an apricot yellow belt on them, which fully highlighted Li Ju's tall, strong and sturdy physique. Li Ju refused this fresh color, but seeing Yaoniang's expectant eyes, he compromised and put on this robe that he had never considered before and after crossing. Fortunately, the young men on the street wore much brighter clothes than Li Ju, and Li Ju's lilac color was considered dull. If the people on the street were poor, most of them wore white or blue clothes. If they were slightly richer, they loved to wear pink, purple, or even cinnabar red, orange red, and tender green. There were even a few young men from wealthy families who wore bright red, royal blue, and bright green satin to swagger through the streets. It was very blinding. Li Ju also saw someone wearing a cloak made of satin that he sold, and showing it off, and he finally knew where dyeing and weaving Chen sold the cloth. Chapter 17. Li Ju's future butler and his family. Li Ju went out that day to prepare manpower for the barren mountain. After the Chinese New Year, spring will come. At that time, every household will be busy with spring plowing. It may be a bit difficult for him to find enough laborers at the moment, but it is different now. The weather is still very cold at this time. Many people cannot survive this winter. At this time, recruiting workers, bringing them home, signing the contract, and only 2 bowls of rice a day can arrange the work for the first half of next year. Therefore, Li Ju first came to the broker to explain his intention, but this time he only asked the broker to ask for 2 people who can supervise the work and help to make the contract for long-term and short-term workers. He planned to find people by himself. The broker knew that Li Ju had a mountain and a house, and he would be a big customer sooner or later, and he must not offend him. Without saying a word, he called the broker who had repaired the garden before, and called a trusted foreman, and decided with Li Ju to prepare the land in the spring. The number of workers was also estimated. Under normal circumstances, for such a big mountain, 20 or 30 strong laborers would be enough. But they all knew about the last time they repaired the garden for Li Ju. Li Ju was a man who valued talents and treated his employees very well. He had a fixed number of working hours every day, so these 20 or 30 people were not enough, and they might have to increase the number to 40. The man was called Wang Dezhen, and he worked well with Li Ju last time and delivered the work in full, so they were considered acquaintances. After calculating the things, to be done this time. Wang Dechen frowned and advised Li Ju, give 2 big coins per person, and 3 meals. Even if they only eat coarse food, each person will get at least 3 cents a day. 40 people will get 1 teal and 2 cents, and 36 teals a month, which is enough for a small family to eat for a year. According to the master's kindness, I'm afraid that the meal will need a few chickens and ducks, and it's not enough with this number. But if you ask them to work 7 or 8 hours a day, only 25 people will be enough, but 23 teals. The master is kind, so there's no need to waste so much. Li Ju said, it's not entirely because of kindness. In fact, manpower is limited after all. Asking them to work 5 hours a day will naturally make them energetic. If they continue to work, the extra 2 or 3 hours may not be able to do much. Too few people will delay things, so it's better to hire more people, which will be faster. Wang Dechen said, Master, you have thought it through. But there is one thing I cannot let go of. Master is good to farmhands, so farmhands naturally remember Master's kindness. I'm afraid that there will be those who also need workers, but are reluctant to spend money and do not cherish people. If they cannot hire farmhands, they will blame Master. Master is new here and has not established a solid foundation. I'm only worried that Master will suffer. Li Ju raised his eyebrows slightly. This is indeed a problem, and it is also the problem that Li Ju considers first. Not only the price of hiring workers will be affected, but also the rent of land and many other things will be affected. The biggest constraint in ancient times is the grassroots structure of power. In ancient times, the lowest level individuals directly accepted the rule from the clan, rather than the state authority. So in many things, the county magistrate was not as authoritative as the elders of a family. The most typical case is eating up the whole family. Even though the Yang dynasty clearly stated that widows could bring dowries and children to remarry, the widow's husband's family often forced her to commit suicide, falsely accused her of adultery, forged IOUs, and forced adoption to make the widow lose everything, or even lose her life, in order to avoid the outflow of property or to seize the family property. Doesn't the county magistrate know about this situation? He knows, but it's useless for him to know. Government orders can often only have a certain effect in the county town, and there is almost no effect below. The small order of a place depends entirely on the village agreement, patriarchal system, and clan rules. Therefore, although it is beneficial for the county magistrate and the country for the widow to remarry and multiply the population, and although the county magistrate knows that the widow is persecuted, he can only turn a blind eye. Li Ju is ready to start his struggle in Qingshan County. He has thought of the development route of farming and primary handicrafts, and is sure that he can revitalize a certain economy and bring in considerable wealth. However, once he violates the interests of local tyrants, he will suffer a counterattack. Even if what he did was beneficial to the country and the people, even if the local officials wanted to protect him, they might not be able to do so. It's okay, I'm prepared. I plan to hire this group of people for a long time. There are only about 40 of them, and they won't disrupt the market. Besides, Li Ju pondered for a moment, and simply said it all. I will tie everyone to my chariot, and make money together. I believe that they will be obedient. If someone dares to disobey, naturally someone will be more anxious than me. When the brokers heard that he had made preparations, they were relieved. Both sides calculated the date and waited for the beginning of spring to fulfill the contract. After appointing a foreman at the brokerage, Li Ju went to the outskirts of the city while buying New Year's goods. Some chicken feather houses in the outskirts of the city were gradually moved in. Chicken feather houses are a place to avoid the cold. The small house is covered with chicken feathers, which has a very good warmth keeping effect, but it is dark and smelly. The poor only need to pay a penny to go in and keep out the cold. But even this penny was too much for many people to pay, so people were often seen freezing to death on the roadside, or people dragging their sick bodies to beg the owner of the chicken feather house to allow them to stay on credit for one night. Li Ju only knew about the chicken feather house after his mother told him. He looked at it thoughtfully for a while and changed his original plan to ask beggars to help advertise for recruitment and let the long-term workers live in Lee Garden. After signing the contract, He directly took out 20 taels of silver and bought a house outside the city, which had 5 or 6 rooms. Because he didn't have time to build a kang, he asked a peddler to collect chicken feathers from the countryside and made it into a chicken feather house. Then he found Wang Dechen and learned that he had never married and had no family, so he gave him 1 penny of silver as labor and another 30 big coins for food. From New Year's Eve to the 15th day of the first lunar month, he also gave him an extra 8 taels of silver, a cotton jacket, a pig's head, and 2 geese, and asked him to help supervise the chicken feather house. Wang Dechen worked so hard that he could only earn 2 or 3 taels of silver a month. After hearing that the price difference was similar and the work was easy, he immediately agreed to stay in the chicken feather house and recruit people. The chicken feather house set up by Li Ju did not accept people who had money, but only accepted people who had no money. If they were old or weak, they would be allowed to live for free. If they were young or young, regardless of gender, they could move in, but they had to sign a contract and be responsible for cleaning and tidying up the chicken feather house before the spring. After the spring, they would be taken directly to Lee Garden to work and use their wages to pay for the accommodation. In this way, all those who came here with nowhere to go, when they heard that they could live here for free and use their wages to pay for it in the future, would be grateful to the host. These people were originally poor people who could not afford a penny, and as long as they could survive, they would not care about selling their bodies. The first few people who had no money and came to ask with a tried attitude were a family. The family's original surname was Wu. There were 5 people in total, a couple with an old mother and 2 children. The Wu family was originally tenant farmers, renting the land of the landlord Wu, a fellow clan member, and making a living by farming. Before the festival, a wild dog stole their food and was accidentally killed by his family. The landlord Wu said that the dog killed was his family's golden dog, who was spoiled by the whole family as a son, so he forced the Wu family to treat the dog as a filial son and grandson and to hold a dog funeral. Wu Dalang had to spend all his family wealth to buy a cemetery for the landlord's dog, hold a funeral, and bury it in a grand manner with pots and cries. Is it okay not to have a grand funeral? Of course, the landlord is reasonable. But the landlord stole his children and tied them to the door with a dog chain, not giving them food, water, or clothes. If the 3 adults of the Wu family don't treat the dog as a son for a day, his children will be treated as dogs for a day. The old lady of the Wu family looked at her 2 grandchildren wearing only underwear, crying for their parents in the ice and snow, and fainted on the spot. The landlord found it very interesting and asked someone to pour boiling water on the 2 children, saying that it was to warm them up so that they would not freeze to death and appear to be wicked. The Wu couple had no choice but to sell their house and quilts to buy a cemetery and offerings. They also took down the door and bedboards to nail a coffin for the dog. They cried in front of the dog's corpse for 3 days and acted like filial sons for 3 days. Finally, they buried the dog, and that was the end of the matter. The 5 people of the Wu family had no place to live. They were driven out of their homes and wandered around wearing only the clothes they wore. Some villagers sympathized with them, but each family could only barely fill their stomachs, so where would the surplus food come from to feed the 5 of them? It was the slack season for farming, and there was still some time before spring plowing, so most families did not need temporary workers. Wu Dalang was good at making bamboo strips, but now there was no bamboo, so even if he wanted to make a smoking cage and a bag to earn a living, he could not do it. Going out to beg for food would fill their stomachs, but only the old lady and 2 children could get some food. If the couple went alone, others would say they were lazy and greedy, and it would be good if they didn't get any cold shoulder. How could they get anything? With nowhere else to go, they thought of the chicken feather house. With a tried attitude, they went door to door asking if they could take them in for a few days. As long as they found a new job, they would double their debts. However, their family of 5 was too big, and even if there were a few kind-hearted people, they couldn't afford to take in 5 people. At this time, they saw the chicken feather house that had just opened and had not received any people yet. Chapter 18 Li Ju, a chivalrous thief. On the first day of the opening of the chicken feather house, Li Ju used the excuse of moving things from his hometown, entrusted his mother to the care of dyeing and weaving Chen, and slipped out to check the situation in the chicken feather house. Several houses had been cleaned by the nearby village women, and the houses were renovated to be solid and airtight. The chicken feathers had not been laid out yet. Li Ju believed that the chicken feathers had to be sterilized at high temperature before they could be used, but he could not spare the manpower for the time being, so he only laid a thick layer of straw and rice straw and stored the chicken feathers in sacks. When the first wave of people came, they would let those who wanted free accommodation cook and dry the chicken feathers. In this way, Li Ju and Wang Dechen waited for Wu Dalong's family of 5. The weather was good that day, so Li Ju and Wang Dechen sat in a rocking chair outside to bask in the sun. When it was night, Wang Dechen put the rocking chair in the small air room, covered it with a quilt, and it was a place to sleep. Wu Dalong saw 2 young men basking in the sun by the roadside and hesitated for a while before he went up to ask if he could stay for a night. He said he would pay double the money if they found a job. Li Ju glanced at Wang Dechen, and Wang Dechen knew that Li Ju was waiting to see how he would deal with the situation. So he sat up and said, "Why are you wandering around during the new year? Don't you have any work in the autumn?" Wu Dalong briefly mentioned the cause and effect, and his old face turned red with shame. Wang Dechen said again, "Is that so? Your luck is really bad. If you want to stay here, that's fine. But we don't let you stay here for free. What kind of work can you do? Our master is kind and can help you with work." Wu Dalong and his wife only knew how to farm, do bamboo weaving and wash, so they told Wang Dechen very shyly. Wang Dechen said, "It's useful, but you have to eat and drink water when you live here, right? The master also provides food and water, which is the same, and it has to be paid. It doesn't matter if you don't have money at the moment, you can use work to pay for it. But our master said that in the future, you have to farm for our master in the spring before you can use work to pay for the night's stay. Otherwise, you can't pay, even if you want to. Do you think about staying here?" Wu Dalong hesitated for a moment and agreed. At this time, he had food to eat and a house to live in. Even if he had to work for free in the future, there was nothing he could do. What was important was to stay alive. How many people had they seen starving to death or freezing to death on the roadside? How could they know that it would be their turn after today? Wang Dechen stood up and took out a few pieces of paper for them to sign. Although they could not read and did not know what was written on them, they could only press their fingerprints with determination. Wang Dechen nodded, opened the door, pointed to the pile of sacks, and said, "First thing to do today, these are chicken feathers. You can boil them with water, dry them, and then spread them in the house to pay for today's accommodation. There is food in the kitchen next door. Adults can have 1 steamed bun, and children can have half a steamed bun. Go and eat by yourselves." Wu Dalong and others were cheered up, and after receiving the order, they hurried to the kitchen next door to get 4 steamed buns to share. In the end, the family pushed and shoved, and the 2 children ate very well, while the adults only ate half full. However, this half fullness also made them full of hope for the future and full of gratitude to the host family. After dinner, Wu Dalong immediately started to work with his family. Wu Dalong chopped wood and stirred the water in the pot so that the chicken feathers could be cooked thoroughly. His wife lit the fire and helped. The 2 young ones moved the chicken feather bags. Even his mother sat on the ground to help spread the chicken feathers. They were busy for a while. Wang Dechen looked into the kitchen and confirmed that they really only took 4 steamed buns, not 1 more. He came out and discussed with Li Ju, saying that they are an honest family and can be of great use. Tomorrow, Wu Dalong and his wife can help. Li Ju trusted him and saw that his arrangement made sense, so he let him do it and rode away. Wang Dechen lived in the chicken feather house for more than 10 days. He found some honest people for Li Ju and took in some old, weak, sick and disabled people by the way, just as a good deed. Li Ju went out for 2 days. He said he went back to his hometown to move things, but he was actually riding a horse around nearby, especially paying attention to the village, where the old Wu family had a dog funeral. The village was not far away. Li Ju rode on a for half a day to get there. It was not late, but it was already dark. Li Ju gave some money to the farmer to stay overnight. In winter, everyone went to bed early, mainly because they were reluctant to spend oil on lamps. Except for a few people, who were really well off, and had important things to do. Everyone went to bed early. Li Ju heard that the family was asleep, so he quietly got up, and slipped to the home of the landlord surnamed Wu. This family was still awake. The master of the Wu family was drinking with his concubine with 2 boys, and there were 3 little girls standing next to them singing. Master Wu was drunk, so he went to pull the prettiest little actor in the middle, and took the poor little girl to play with her, forcing her to drink, and touching her all over. His son's eyes were red from drinking too. He said to his father, Wu Laojiu's wife is pretty. Dad, I want my wife. Master Wu pinched the little actress' neck and bit her face, making the little actress beg for mercy. But Master Wu slapped her in the face, and she was stunned. Master Wu scolded his son, you are an ignorant person. What else does his wife have, except a big butt? But his daughter. She is the best in the world. There were all kinds of dirty words below, which were unbearable to hear. Li Ju, who was lurking on the wall, frowned when he heard them. His son said, you'd better bring her back, to show her to your son. Last time, you tied up Wu Dalang's daughter at the door. After all, I didn't get to enjoy her. Mr. Wu glared at him unhappily. You know shit. If you tie her up for 2 more days, she will be willing to die. Others torture an eagle, but I torture a human. A country girl like this, she's just young and fresh. How can you eat her, if you don't treat her like a pig or a dog? What a pity, what a pity. Her father would really be willing to give a wild dog as his son, and take the cheap girl back. What a pity, what a pity. Mr. Wu smacked his lips, obviously looking very regretful. Next time, we won't call them a dog funeral. We'll just say they beat our family members to death. We'll just beat the men to death and snatch the women away. His son said, I saw Wu Dalan begging for food at the village the other day. Why not go there tomorrow? His wife is also a good looking woman. Landlord Wu said, that's right. Let's send people to scare them tomorrow. It's easy to freeze a few people to death anyway. Then we'll push them into the river and drown them. Li Ju sneered secretly and used the good skills he had trained in modern times to sneak into several rooms of the main house. He searched the bedboards, secret cabinets and other places cleanly. He only saw a lot of land deeds and house deeds, a lot of IOUs, and some yellow and white things. With the help of the lighter, Li Ju hurriedly took a look at the IOUs. They were basically sloppy IOUs with interest rates as high as 7 or 8%. If he borrowed 100 yuan this month, it would double in less than a year. And it was not known whether the 100 yuan borrowed was paid in full. In addition to the donkey rolling around, there were also many people who took money on the spot and returned 9 times the amount. Anyway, no matter who borrowed the money, they would have to pay it back double, or even 3 or 4 times. According to the way some of the IOUs were written, the monthly interest alone was more than the principal. Li Ju tucked those IOUs with particularly high interest rates and obviously outrageous into his arms, and took out a stack of those closer to the house from the land deeds and house deeds, and kept the rest of the scattered or farther ones. Even if he guessed that the gold and silver were obtained through various means of deception or even robbery, there was no evidence, so Li Ju finally only took an amount similar to Wu Dalang's property. He thought of a dog funeral. The next morning, before dawn, Li Ju left the village and went to the wild mountain village to cover up. Not long after, the quiet village was boiling. Some people laughed and said, it's gone. It's gone. Thank you, hero. Thank you, hero. Some people cried and wailed, the heavens have finally opened their eyes. My poor son. Why did you go? Some people went from door to door, trying to secretly offer sacrifices to the unknown celebrity who had done chivalrous deeds. As for the landlord Wu, he was still drunk and dreaming, and had not woken up yet. Only when he woke up could he hear this bad news. Li Ju didn't know all this. He took advantage of the night to scatter the torn IOUs all over the village, and he blacked out the columns of everyone's house deeds and sent them to various plots and houses. Whoever saw it would own it. If he had time, he could slowly inquire in the village about who should be given and who should not be given, but he didn't have time, so he had to do it casually. As for the result, he didn't care much, and he didn't have time to care. Chapter 19. I wish you the best of luck. On the afternoon of the third day, Li Ju returned to the city with his bags on his back. When he passed by the chicken feather house, he went to see the situation. Everything was in order. Wu Dalong's family cooked the chicken feathers all night and spread them out to dry. They took good care of them until this afternoon. They put them in the room and are now catching up on sleep. At the same time, they took in some people one after another. They were all the lowest class who were so poor that they had no pants. Wang Dechen took out the roster and showed it to Li Ju. There were about 7 or 8 old, weak, sick and disabled people who had completely lost their ability to work. There were about 10 young and strong men who could work, but there were more women, as many as 12. One of the young and strong men was a mute, but he was obedient, could work, had good strength and was honest. Because he didn't know his name, and the little beggar who came with him called him a big guy, Wang Dechen named the mute Li Ada. To be honest, the mute himself recognized it. After the mute came, he took over Wu Dalong's work. After the chicken feathers were cooked, there were still things left to do, such as chopping wood, watching the stove, fetching water, boiling water, etc. He could take care of all of them, and it was obvious that he was a very obedient and capable person. Wang Dechen had a good eye, and everyone he kept was a good worker. Now Wang Dechen hardly had to worry about the entire chicken feather room, and he could even continue to lazily bask in the sun with a teapot in his hand. Cooking, chopping wood, fetching water, making clothes. Someone would do it spontaneously, and those who had no work would even anxiously ask him for work to do, so as not to be kicked out. Their enthusiasm for work was higher than any group of people Wang Dechen had managed before, which showed that they were really driven to a dead end by life, grasping the last straw, fearing that hope would be cut off. Li Ju looked at the roster, and Wang Dechen told him one by one what kind of personality each person had. Except for the newcomers, he knew everyone else. Li Ju was very satisfied with Wang Dechen. If he were in modern times, he would be a top human resources manager. Li Ju still had a lot of things to do in the future. If Wang Dechen could do it, he could just poach him to be his housekeeper. That would be the best use of his talents. After Li Ju finished reading the booklet, Wang Dechen gave him some advice. You can take this mute, the 2 children, and the mother and daughter who came to seek refuge last night back home today. There are only you and the girl in your family, so it's good to have them to make it more lively. Besides, they can do some things like guarding the house and delivering messages. You see, you have to go there yourself when you are told to do so. Your efforts are so precious. In fact, Wang Dechen had another meaning, which was the mother and daughter. The mother of the mother and daughter was Zhao Sanjiu, who was only in her early 20s this year, and the daughter Zhao Lian, who was only 6 or 7 years old, and both were very beautiful. When he came to seek refuge last night, he didn't notice it because he was disheveled. This morning, when the women finished washing up, cleaning the house, making breakfast, or washing clothes, Wang Dechen discovered these 2 beautiful girls. Wang Dechen knew that Li Ju had no wife and only had a yellow-haired girl as a servant. He didn't know if he wanted a wife, but in short, if he had this need, Sanjiu was a good candidate. This woman was beautiful, sensible, virtuous, and had a very easy handle around her. If he didn't have this need and just stayed around to do chores, it would be a good place for Sanjiu and her daughter. It didn't matter whether Sanjiu herself was willing or not. It was a good thing to have someone to protect them. Li Ju didn't think so deeply, of course. Now, every day when he closed his eyes, he had things to do and plans to write, so he didn't have the energy to toss women. But Wang Dechen's recommendation of Sanjiu and her daughter was a touch on his urgent needs. Yu Yaoniang was too young and didn't understand many things. He was a man and embarrassed to be so involved, so it was just right for a woman to teach Yu Yaoniang. There will always be female relatives and female workers in the future, and it is not convenient for him to come out and have 2 deep dealings with women in a short period of time. In addition, he really needs someone to pass on the message, and he can't always run out of the city just to talk to Chen and Wang Dechen. So Li Ju simply spent a night in the chicken feather room, one to see what the situation is, and the other to take people home early tomorrow morning. The mute is indeed very capable and careful. Wang Dechen introduced that this is the host's house, and he is passing by to stay overnight. Although Li Ju had already said it's just a small favor, not worth mentioning, let alone thanking him specially, the poor people who stayed here still took the opportunity to kowtow and thank him first. In addition to being grateful to Li Ju for saving his life, they also hoped that the old man would not regret it for their sincerity. Even if these people only eat one steamed bun a day, they will spend a few cents of the master's silver a day. This money can be used to buy a nice set of clothes. Our gentleman is still wearing a brown robe that is neither black nor grey, with a messy pattern and you can't tell what material it is made of. The master is kind-hearted and is willing to wear less, but if he suddenly changes his mind, they will have to go out and starve again. The mute may have noticed that Li Ju felt goosebumps every time someone knelt and kowtowed to thank him, so he didn't rush up to express his gratitude. Instead, he went to boil water for Li Ju to wash his face and feet, and even scalded the cloth towel for wiping the water, before wrung it out, and send it over. After walking outside for a day in the winter, soaking your feet in such a bucket of hot water is really comfortable to the point of numbing your scalp. Li Ju considers himself a tough guy, but he was softened by the soak. Seeing Li Ju's satisfied expression, Wang Dechen asked the two boys and Sanjiu's mother and daughter to recognize Li Ju's face. The boys are a pair of brothers. The older brother is called Chuzan, who is only 10 years old, and the younger brother is called Shiba, who is only 6 years old. The two of them wandered around because their parents had passed away. They used to work as porters at the dock, but there was not much work to do because they were not strong enough. Later, a casino wanted to keep them as babysitters, but the elder brother didn't want to, so he fled with his younger brother. This winter was particularly cold, and Shiba Lang almost froze to death before he found such a place to stay. When he settled down yesterday, Shiba Lang had a high fever. Poor children are tough. Even this child with a fever drank a bowl of hot soup, covered himself with sweat, and recovered by noon today. Li Ju was soaking comfortably, and the mute was still adding some hot water from time to time, which corrupted Li Ju and made him go to the world of hedonism in an instant. He raised his eyelids and took a look after hearing the two brothers report their names. Two neat children who should be studying at this age, but they are already working as half-grown laborers. Wang Dechen looked at the two of them in a daze, with an expression of disappointment, and said, "Oh, you two little fools. This is the master. You are lucky to be here. If you please the master, you will be children of a wealthy family in the future. If nothing else, you will always have enough food and clothes. You two should be good and kowtow to the master. Just call yourselves youthful, little one. This is the respect and inferiority. Our master is a kind man. You all should be obedient and don't make him angry." Li Ju hurriedly waved his hands. "No, no, no. Our family doesn't have this kind of thing. I give money and food, and they do the work. We are all ordinary people. There is no difference, and there are no rules. If you are unhappy with your work, just tell me in advance, and you can go on your own. Who can be the master of whom? Tell me, are you familiar with the city and outside the city? Can you walk fast? What education have you read? Can you recognize words?" The two brothers were stunned for a moment, not knowing whether to say what Li Ju said or listen to Wang Dechen. Li Ju then asked Wang Dechen to go out and look after the other people so as not to get in the way. After sending him away, Li Ju turned around and said to the two brothers and the woman who was hugging her daughter in the shadow beside them, "I paid you to do this job, so of course you should listen to me. What do you have to worry about? To be honest, it's not for anything. I just need a few people to run errands. I want to see if you are familiar with the roads and can read, so that you won't fail to complete the tasks assigned to you and delay my work." Chu Sanlang then said, "I can recite a few sentences of the 3-character classic, and I'm familiar with the south and east sides of the city. My brother only knows names. We both walk fast, and we used to be hangers-on and porters." Li Ju had expected this, and said, "Okay, go home and learn to read and study first. I have a little girl who is about the same age, so it's just right for you to study together. Are you willing? If not, wait until the spring to plant trees and crops in my fields, and I will still pay you for your wages." Chu Sanlang and Shiba Lang hurriedly said yes. How could they not want to? It was a great blessing to be able to work for a kind family. Li Ju asked them to go back to the rest area, and then he looked at Sanjiu and her daughter. Sanjiu shivered when he stared at her like that, and bowed with her daughter, saying softly, "Hello, master." Chapter 20. What a beautiful lady. Sanjiu and her daughter came out from the shadows, and Li Ju could see her appearance clearly. She was about 1.6 meters tall, and her fingers and neck looked thin, and her face was really worthy of the 8 words "a thorny hairpin and a cloth skirt cannot conceal the beauty of a country." Her hair was tied into a loose bun, without any decoration. Her face was just washed, without any makeup or decoration. She was wearing a bloated and tattered cotton jacket, which had not been washed for a long time, and was a little reflective. Even with such a look, she still couldn't hide her beauty. Whether it was her tearful eyes, her slightly trembling lips, or her perfect nose bridge, they were all just right, and the combination made her even more beautiful. So much so that Li Ju, a dead otaku who thought he was not a dog who judged by appearance, was also stunned for a moment. Sanjiu was extremely scared. Sanjiu's surname was Zhao, and because her father was 20 years old and her mother was 19 years old when she was born, her name was Sanjiu. Sanjiu was made a child bride at the age of 5. She gave birth to her daughter Xiaolian at the age of 16. When she was 23, her husband died because of a change in her family. The local clan believed that her husband had no sons and that the family property would be inherited by his uncles and uncles. So his uncles and uncles took away the last few acres of thin land and the broken tile house, preparing to sell her and her daughter. Sanjiu was too beautiful and could cook. The brothel was willing to buy her for 20 taels, which was not the highest. There were also wealthy merchants willing to pay 30 taels. Sanjiu took Xiaolian and escaped, preparing to go to the city to work as a laborer to make a living. Unexpectedly, a group of beggars took away their last warm clothes and food. If she hadn't made a quick decision to throw the small bag in her hand away to attract the beggars to rob, I'm afraid that she and her daughter would have been in trouble. After that, Sanjiu and Xiaolian hid for 2 days, hoping to find a way to make a living. However, it was useless. They were unfamiliar with the place, didn't know which family needed people for what kind of work, and no one introduced them. It was difficult for them to find a reliable family for a while, and they were almost abducted and sold to a brothel again. Finally, when Sanjiu was asking for water, she learned from a peasant woman that there was a chicken feather house where she could live for free as long as she paid her wages in the spring, and meals were provided while she worked. Sanjiu was tempted and took her daughter to the chicken feather house. When she first saw the chicken feather house, Sanjiu was a little worried that it might be a trap, worried that she might be abducted. She observed for a while and saw women of different ages coming in and out. They all looked poor and didn't look like they were being bullied. So Sanjiu dared to knock on the door, and then the hired agent Li Ju recorded her willingness to pay her debts with work, drew a fingerprint on the deed, and was assigned a small bed in the women's room. She couldn't read and didn't know what was written on the deed, but anyway, she and her daughter now had a safe and warm place to sleep. Since she entered the door, Sanjiu secretly made a wish, hoping that the master behind the chicken feather house would not be a sex-hungry ghost and would not be tempted by sex. When Wang Dechen called her to see the master, she was reluctant, but she had no choice but to come. She wanted to smear colash on her face, but Wang Dechen saw it and said that the master didn't like dirty people, so he wiped it off immediately. Zhao Sanjiu was very scared after being stared at by Li Ju for a long time. Moreover, Li Ju was so big that he could beat 10 people at once. He was much more fierce than those beggars and gangsters on the street. He could manage such a large family business by himself, so he must be very smart and not so easy to fool. It was not until Xiaolian timidly poked her head out from behind Sanjiu and then retracted it that Li Ju suddenly woke up. "I'm sorry, I've never seen a girl as beautiful as you. Please don't blame me for losing my composure for a moment." Sanjiu looked up at him, only to see that he was still sitting upright on the chair with a smile on his face. He did not seem to be making any movements, and he whispered, "I dare not." Li Ju guessed that she would never let down her guard in the short term, so there was no need to comfort her with kind words. He just spoke in a business-like tone and said, "What can you do? Can you read?" Sanjiu said truthfully, I can't read, but I can do a little bit of other things. I can farm, cook, make clothes. Thinking of Li Ju mentioning that there was a little girl at home, she added, I can take care of children. Li Ju glanced at her hands, a pair of working people's hands, full of calluses and wrinkles. She didn't think she would be the kind of person who would be arrogant and extravagant when she arrived in a comfortable place. Li Ju said, they can all be used. From now on, you will take care of the children. Our youngest mother, your own daughter, and Shivalang will all be in your care. You can also cook 3 meals a day and make clothes. I don't know how to make clothes, so you can handle it. The wages are the same, still 20 yuan, 3 meals a day, and you can stay at my house at night, but don't break anything at home. Your daughter will live with you. She can't do much, but she can't eat much, so I won't pay her wages, but I will give her food and take her to study with me. Chapter 21. Mr. Li's future first confidant. After counting Chu Sanshiba, Sanjiu and Xiaolian, Li Ju frowned. He still needed an accountant and an assistant. There were not many people now. There were only 4 or 5 people to work. The expenses of the chicken feather room were fixed, and Wang Dechen could calculate them clearly. When the spring came, and they started to plant trees, it would be a bit troublesome. The daily purchases, wages, etc. were not simple to calculate. Li Ju had a headache. Forget it, at most he would continue to borrow Wang Dechen to use, and then let him go, when he had an accountant. Sanjiu saw that Li Ju had no other intentions, thanked him again and again, wiped his eyes, and went out to pack his luggage. Li Ju finally looked at the mute. Although the mute was thin, he was not small. He was only a head shorter than Li Ju, about 17 or 18 years old, and looked a bit like a tough guy. Wang Dechen might have seen Li Ju's love for beauty, so he found 5 good-looking beggars from a large group of beggars. According to Wang Dechen, the mute was a simple, honest, careful man with great strength. Fortunately, when he was wandering, those people with bad intentions only dared to play tricks on him, deceive him, and use sweet words, to pretend to be sick and pitiful to cheat him of food, but they did not dare to really hit him. Therefore, although the mute looked malnourished and timid, he was not injured, and was not frightened. The mute had a sister before. Because the mute was deceived and failed to protect her, the sister was defiled by the landlord in the village. She was so upset that she committed suicide. The mute went to ask for an explanation, but was beaten and handed over to the government. When the mute came out of prison, his family had already been broken up, so the mute had to wander outside. From then on, the mute was particularly sensitive to these things. In the past 2 days, the mute was well taken care of by Zhao Sanjiu in the chicken feather room. On the one hand, Zhao Sanjiu really loved him, and on the other hand, she needed someone to protect him, so she defended the mute several times, and tidied up the mute's hair and beard. The mute then treated Zhao Sanjiu as his sister. Wang Dechen suggested that the 5 of them go and take care of Master Li right away. The mute was worried that this master would be a kind-looking villain like the old master back then. Fortunately, the master really didn't seem to have this intention, and the new sister was safe. The mute knew that he had a bad fate. His parents died when he was a child, he was disabled, and he lost his sister. But he was quite content with his fate. Even if the master disliked him and only wanted him to work for a few days, the mute would be content. The mute stood in the corner very obediently, waiting for Li Ju's decision. Unlike what he thought, Li Ju really needed such a mute to do things around him. He had too many things that he couldn't see in public, and doing everything by himself would be too challenging for his physical fitness and CPU limit. If he wanted help, he had to be a tight-lipped person who would never betray him. This mute is just the right person who fell from the sky. In this era, the separation between men and women is very serious. Although Yu Yaoniang is reliable, it is not convenient to bring her to various occasions. There may be some dangerous and hard things in the future, which are not suitable for Yu Yaoniang. Now because the mute can't read and speak, it is almost impossible for others to get things about the future world from the mute by gestures or questions. Basically, the possibility of leaks is eliminated, which makes Li Ju feel relieved. As for the mute's personal development prospects, it will not be too late to teach him to read and write after confirming that the mute is trustworthy in the future. Li Ju has no way of knowing the mute's past, and he doesn't know how stupid and honest he is, otherwise he can actually feel more at ease. However, at this moment, it is also good to have someone to help move things. Li Ju thought for a while, and threatened the mute deliberately. Master, I really need a helper. Women are not suitable, but they can do many shameful things. If you agree to go with me today, then you can never leave our Li family again in this life, and you have to work for me for the rest of your life, otherwise I will kill you. Are you willing? The mute was very happy to hear this. He was afraid of being driven away halfway. Once on the boat, it is a lifelong iron rice bowl. Master, do you think this is not good? The mute nodded desperately, and his neck was almost broken. Li Ju pulled his feet out of the water, wiped them dry, pointed to the pile of things in the room, and said, "This is my goods. Master, you go and sort them out, try to stack them neatly, and handle them with care. Don't break them or damage them. Tomorrow you and I, and my horse, will carry some." The mute nodded, walked to the wall quietly and sat down, silently counting and cleaning up the pile of goods that were messed up by Li Ju. Li Ju took the foot washing water out and poured it out. When he came back, the mute was still sorting the goods seriously. Li Ju then told the mute to get up at 1 AM the next morning and to call the mother and daughter on the 3rd, 18th, and 39th days to prepare for the journey. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep on the recliner. He seemed to be asleep, but in fact, his ears were always listening. He only opened the particularly obvious packaging, such as plastic paper and other materials that were difficult to explain. The other paper boxes, wooden boxes, and cloth bags were all kept, and the words and paintings on them were still there. The mute did not make any extra movements, but classified the things according to their size and material according to his understanding of the things, and then packed them separately. There were some gold, silver, and jewelry that were very valuable at first glance, and they were exquisite and precious. The mute did not pay any attention to them, and his hands did not stop at all, as if they were just ordinary objects. Li Ju was very satisfied with this, and let him toss slowly, thinking about the next arrangements by himself. Thinking about it, he fell asleep. The next morning, Li Ju got up very early for a morning run, and by the way, he got himself a cake and milk for breakfast. When he returned to the chicken feather room, he also brought a basket of modern apples. These guaguang and Fuji apples, which Li Ju thought were a bit sour and hard, and not very tasty, were already much better than special apples in ancient times. Even the rich could not find such large and sweet fruits, let alone the poor. Everyone in the chicken feather room had already gotten up, sweeping the floor, cooking, or helping the elderly and disabled people next door to wash up. It was a harmonious atmosphere. The mute and others had already cleaned themselves up, just waiting for Li Ju to leave. Li Ju gave the apples to Chu Sanlang and told him to give one to each person. He also asked the mute, Sanjiu and others if they had eaten breakfast. When he learned that they had already eaten, he asked the mute to move out the luggage that had been packed last night, take the ingredients that Li Ju had taken out today, and follow the big black horse into the city together. The mute went up to lead the horse with great tact, because he and Li Ju were the only adult men, so they each carried a bundle, and the rest were carried on the horse's back. Chu Sanlang and Zhao Sanjiu each held a small package, which was their own small belongings, probably unfinished steamed buns, small clothes for their younger brother or daughter, etc. Shibalang and Xiaolian were put on the horse by Li Ju, as A was a majestic horse, so it was easy for him to carry 2 children. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 20. To let everyone know Mr. Li Dashenran. The distance from the chicken feather room to the Li garden was not too far, and since the 2 children were on horseback and would not hold them back, it took the group more than an hour to get there. However, Shibalang and Xiaolian did not know how to ride a horse, and they were both shaken so much that their faces turned pale when they got off the horse. Shibalang was better. He shook his head and stood next to his brother, apparently nothing serious. Xiaolian vomited all over the place, and Sanjiu frowned with distress. Li Ju noticed Xiaolian's pale face, and guessed that Sanjiu could not ride a horse either. He poured a glass of water for Xiaolian from the kettle he carried with him, and said to the mute, "Remember one thing, we need to go to the carriage and horse shop to buy a carriage for the trip, and we have to buy oxen, horses and mules in the spring." The mute nodded, and it was unknown how he remembered it, but he gave Li Ju the impression that he remembered it. Xiaolian drank a mouthful of the water that Li Jiu pushed to her, grabbed her mother's clothes and said, "Mom, I feel uncomfortable." Sanjiu was about to bend down to carry Xiaolian, but Li Jiu took a step ahead and picked up Xiaolian and held her on his shoulders. "Let me do it. After all, she is only 6 or 7 years old, and her weight is not light. Let's go to the next door to pick up my sister, and then go in and settle down together. It will take at least half an hour, including the time we walked here. It would take 3 hours in modern time." Sanjiu was so thin that she would fall down if the wind blew. Li Jiu didn't want to call a doctor for Sanjiu on the first day of his return home. Li Jiu's house was the largest in this area, and most of the other houses had small courtyards with 2 entrances, and you could see the end at a glance. Li Ju stood outside the neighbor's courtyard wall and shouted at the top of his voice. Yu Yaoniang and Aunt Wang, who had lived in the neighbor's house for 3 days, thanked them for their care and flew out like a young swallow. "Master, you are finally back." Yaoniang flew out of the door with joy and was about to hug Li Ju's arm happily, but unexpectedly there were 5 people standing outside. Li Ju was holding a little girl in his arms. Yaoniang was stunned, her steps slowed down, and her expression changed. Li Ju was still standing there wondering, "Why don't you run away? Why are you standing there? Come here, let's go home." Yaoniang came forward and bravely grabbed Li Ju's sleeve. "I'm coming, master." "Who are they?" Li Ju touched the little girl's head kindly. He was a little braver after not seeing her for a few days. "This big guy will follow me to do things in the future, such as moving things and running errands. It's all up to him. He can't speak, so you can just call him Brother Darling. People outside call him Liada. After you teach him to read, let him choose his own name. This is the one I hired to cook, wash clothes, clean, and teach you some chores. You can call her." Li Ju hesitated for a while. This generation is really, just call her Sister Zhao, or Sister Sanjiu. This is Sister Sanjiu's daughter, who is several years younger than you. You must be a good elder, and take good care of her. Those 2 are the ones I hired to run errands and deliver messages. The older one is your brother who is in the 3rd year of junior high school, and the younger one is your brother who is in his 12th year. After the new year, some people will move in, and after the spring, there will be more people. Yaoniang, although you have always called me master, in my heart, you and my sister are no different. When new people come, you must receive them well." Yaoniang was happy at this time and responded crisply, "I know." Li Ju formally introduced Yaoniang to the others, then took the luggage from the stable, carried some on each person's back, and entered the mansion together. The mute and the others had never seen the interior of a large house. They could only look from a distance, or take a sneak peek when someone opened the door, and saw some screen walls and rocks. This was the first time they entered the courtyard. Upon entering the door, there was a row of back houses. The back houses were divided into east and west sides by corridors, each with 2 characters written on it. Passing through the aisle in the middle of the back houses was the courtyard. The soil in the courtyard was neatly turned, and there were only some plants in the corners, and the rest was empty. Li Ju guessed that they would have doubts, because most people's homes had a flat blue stone slab at this location, with at most 2 flower beds, and no one would just leave the land here for nothing. "We are going to plant something here after the spring. These are the fine varieties that I have cultivated myself. There are high yield grains and beans that can be used to extract oil. Once we can take good care of them here, we will move them to the mountains and sell them to people outside." Li Ju took the initiative to explain, so the Sanjiu and others felt that it was natural. After crossing this land and going inside, there were houses on the left, a large open space on the right, and a corridor in the middle. The open space on the right was the same as the front yard, with only a few trees and the land turned over. There was another large pond not far away, with a stream of water flowing. Li Ju pointed to the left and said, "The houses here are all empty. Each house looks similar. Remember the places. When you have finished looking, choose a place to live." Then he nodded to the right and said, "This is also a field for cultivating good seeds. There is a small hillside behind, where fruit trees are planted. They are the good fruits I gave you this morning. Fish fry and lotus seeds and lotus roots are raised in the pond. The ditch has running water, which is very sweet. It can be used for making tea and cooking. Therefore, washing clothes and pouring swill here are not allowed to avoid polluting the water source." Everyone nodded to indicate that they had taken note. Li Ju then remembered that there was still a lot of cement in the warehouse. It would be a matter of time before the traditional method of making cement was used here, but the high quality modern cement in the warehouse could be used to protect the water in the ditch from being polluted. On the third day of the first lunar month, remember this, after the new year, go to the chicken feather room and ask Wang Dechen to find a mason. I need someone to clean up the ditch. Li Ju finally realized the benefits of having manpower. He didn't have to do such work himself. The mute waved his hands at Li Ju, pointed at the ditch, then pointed at himself, and raised his thumbs, gesturing back and forth several times. Li Ju understood. "You mean you can do it?" The mute nodded vigorously. "Okay, I'll leave it to you. But this is a physical job, and you have to prepare the stones. You can't finish it by yourself until the sun goes down. On the third day of the first lunar month, you should go to Wang Dechen and ask for 2 strong men to go to the stone shop to drag the stones back." Li Ju was particularly confident in the mute, probably because he was very honest and could not speak. But Chuzan was obviously not capable of handling so many things by himself. Li Ju paused and changed his words. "You told Wang Dechen that you want to build a 10-15 foot long canal and build the base and walls for several manure pits. Let him tell you how many people to bring, how many cars to hire, and where to drag the stones, and how many stones to drag. The accounts are all in the name of Yu Yaoniang Guangan Street. Wang Dechen has supervised here before, and knows what kind of work I want. You can tell him, and he will understand it once you tell him." Chuzan remembered that he was a little confused, but Shiba remembered it more clearly. Li Ju straightened out the logic and repeated it again, and then asked Shiba and Chuzan to pass the message together. "As for cement, pretend that it had been put in the witch a long time ago. After doing this, take the mute to try to make the traditional cement, and the mute will not doubt the origin of modern cement. By the way, you can also let the mute build a layer on the 5 sides of the manure pit to completely prevent the pollution of groundwater." Master Li gave orders very successfully, nodded his chin with satisfaction, and continued to walk inside with everyone. Chapter 23, Division of the Property. Li Garden is very large, but there are not many houses, so you can see that a lot of land is being plowed there, which makes diligent people feel excited. Walking forward from the middle corridor, there are 2 small courtyards on the left. Except for the corridor on the east side, the other sides of the courtyard are all white walled and grey tiled houses, and some of the houses are 2 or 3 stories high. The place that is usually used as the main house in Li Garden is also divided into several small houses, which are exactly the same as the houses that should be the side rooms and the annex rooms. Sanjiu couldn't help asking, "Can we choose to live here too?" Of course, what's the point of living if the house is not built for people? You came early, you can choose first, and live in the one you like, Li Ju said indifferently. To the north of the big courtyard and pond on the right, is where Li Ju and Yu Yaoniang live. Li Ju's house is a separate building, not large in area, but it is quite comfortable to live in it, a story building with its own door and door. Yu Yaoniang's house is directly opposite Li Ju, and there are still 7 or 8 empty houses in the same row. The corridor between the east and west sides leads to a large empty room. Going through these houses and heading north, you can open up the backyards on both sides. Such a large backyard is all on the hillside. Needless to say, it was all turned over and left empty by Li Ju, leaving only a few roses and peonies. There is another row of houses further north in the backyard, and then the courtyard wall. Li Ju planned to give those houses to the people who guard the house. Although the world is peaceful, the rich families are always the fat meat in the eyes of the vagrants and bandits. Li Ju must consider his personal safety more. After reading all this, Li Ju turned around and sat down on the steps in front of the big house at the end of the corridor and asked everyone to sit down as well. He piled the luggage on the ground and said, "That's it. All the houses are the same. There are tables, chairs, cabinets, quilts, and mattresses. There may be some small items that are missing. If you don't have them right now, you can all tell Sanjiu. Sanjiu remembers to report to me every day. If it is really necessary, I will pay Chuzan and Ada to buy them. There shouldn't be any omissions, right? Then choose a house. Which one do you want to live in?" Except for Yaoniang, the other 4 people looked at each other, and no one dared to speak first. Yaoniang stuck to Li Ju pitifully, fearing that Sanjiu would choose a place close to Li Ju. As for why, she didn't know. Li Ju waited for a while, and seeing that they were still hesitant, he said, "In the future, the house will be full of people, and I won't be able to take care of so many fields. In the future, we will organize more, and hire more women to spin and weave. So you don't have to be so cautious, just pick whichever you like. Just separate the men and women a little further away." Sanjiu was the oldest, so Li Ju urged them again. She thought that Li Ju's demeanor didn't seem fake, so she was the first to speak. "The master said I'm responsible for cooking, so I thought I should be closer to the kitchen. I'll live in the room at the end of the same row of houses as Yaoniang. I'm afraid only women can live in this row, and the kitchen here is close to the master, so it won't be too cold when the food is cooked and sent over in winter." Li Ju glanced at the place she mentioned and roughly knew the direction. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about me. I eat in this big house just like you. Just get the food from the kitchen and bring it over when the time comes." After saying this, Li Ju looked at the row of houses in the east courtyard thoughtfully, and suddenly he regretted letting Yaoniang live opposite. Yaoniang living opposite would directly lead to the fact that this row of houses would only be occupied by girls in the future. A grown man like him would pass by more or less when he went in and out, which was so inconvenient. And his accountant, housekeeper, and assistant would have to find a few men for the convenience of going out for business in a short period of time. Then, wouldn't he have to find another office space for the comings and goings in the future? Li Ju regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Yaoniang was not happy either. She boldly tugged at Li Ju's clothes and said, "Master, didn't you ask me to cook for you? I learned what you taught me during the 2 days you were gone." Aunt Wang next door also said she would teach me how to make braised pork. Li Ju didn't understand her other meaning and said, "It's irrelevant. Cooking a small stove and a big pot. How can you cook 3 meals a day for so many of us? I still think there are not enough people in the kitchen with you, Sister Zhao." Yaoniang had only been with Li Ju for a short time. If she had known for a few more days that Li Ju was not the kind of person who would beat or scold people at will, or sell people out, she would have rolled her eyes. Sanjiu understood, but she didn't care. Li Ju didn't have that kind of intention towards her. The little girl was jealous before she fell in love, so she could only pretend not to know. She still needed the salary to support herself and her daughter. There were not many families who were rich, kind and in need of workers. Even if there were many, it would be a great fortune to meet one. How could she expect a second one? Also, I remember that there is only one room in the first house. Sister Zhao should live in one more room. Yaoniang needs to have her own room when she grows up. She can live here until she gets married. Li Ju also made arrangements for Yaoniang in advance. The mother and daughter had no place to stay. If nothing unexpected happened, they might have to live here for 10 or 20 years. It would be better to plan for the next 20 years now. The same goes for the 2 brothers. Li Ju also asked them to choose 2 rooms. Although they live together now, they still needed their own space in the future. Chuzan and Shivalang hesitated, and finally Sanjiu helped to choose a house. Chuzanlang and Shivalang have to run errands frequently, and have to follow the master to pass on messages. In fact, it is best for one to live near the master, such as in the west courtyard, and the other to live next to the hanging flower gate. In this way, the one who goes out will come back quickly, and the one inside will be able to pass on messages. The master feels sorry for the 2 brothers to be separated, but there is nothing to be afraid of. Shivalang is still young anyway, so he can live with his brother for the time being. Li Ju nodded and agreed with Sanjiu's idea. Chuzan chose the first and second rooms in the west courtyard across the corridor from Sanjiu. As for whether to move out in the future, that is a matter for the future. Chapter 24. Li Yuan's wealth and honor treat everyone equally. Li Ju had already thought about where the mute would live from the beginning. Since the mute would be the confidant who would help with the inventory and keep secrets in the future, there was no need to think about where he would live. He directly decided on a house next to the warehouse, which was also a single family house, not far from Li Ju's small building, with the mountain and orchard in the backyard behind it, and the springs, ditches, and fields in front. After confirming that the mute was not dissatisfied with living in that corner, Li Ju clapped his hands and said, "Now come with me to get the keys and clothes. Then there are 3 things for you to do. First, go back to your respective rooms to put your things away and see if you are missing anything. Then go and boil water for a bath. Water can be obtained from the ditch and boiled in the kitchen. Go to the large kitchen in the west to boil water first. Take a bath in the toilet. Now, light a brazier and burn all your clothes. Sister Zao will handle this. If there are lice in your hair, cut them all off. This includes you, Sister Zao. Second, memorize the words on the wall. When you say where you live in the future, don't say the first room in the east backyard or something like that, which will confuse people. Just say the name of the row of houses. I live in building number 1. The large room in the middle is the main hall. The row where Yu Yaoniang and Sister Zao Xiaolian live is written with east second. The word on the left is east and the word on the right is 2. On the 3rd day of the 1st lunar month, you will live in west second and so on. Li Ju pointed at 2 large white characters on the wall and taught them how to write them. They were also forced to remember the words east 3 and west 3 and the numbers on the doors, and they would be tested again later. There is a third thing. To celebrate everyone moving to Lee Garden and officially becoming my long-term workers, I will cook today. When you are settled, wait at the entrance of the main hall and eat in the main hall. After eating, you wash the dishes. Yu Yaoniang, come and help me. I brought back some new dishes. You may not have seen them. I will teach you how to make them. Yu Yaoniang immediately became active, jumped up and responded with a smile. Hey. Everyone helped to deliver the luggage they carried back to the warehouse, took the key from Li Ju, and each received a small bundle, a roll of bedding, etc., and went back to their own rooms. All the rooms here are exactly the same. The only difference is the size of the various furniture and utensils. The uniform configuration is a small round table, 2 chairs, 2 stools, a large bed, a shelf, 2 boxes, and a few bags, boxes, pots, bowls, pots, cups, etc. Put the bedding on the bed, flatten the corners, and then put the sheets on it. It's the place to sleep. Sanjiu is the fastest to do these tasks. She and her daughter received 2 sets of bedding, and she asked Chuzan to help bring them over. Now she lives with her daughter, and the mattress can be put into layers, which is softer and thicker. Sanjiu measured the thickness of the mattress and pressed everywhere to confirm that it was a 2-inch thick solid cotton mattress. Then look at the quilt cover and sheets, which are all made of brand new cloth that can't be named, fine and soft, and there are beautiful and delicate flowers. Could it be there are really such great benefactors in the world? There are more than 100 rooms here. Could more than 100 people be able to get such good things? Sanjiu murmured and put on the quilt. The 2 sets of soft cotton quilts were as unreal as a sweet dream. Xiaolian had taken out all of Li Jufa's clothes when her mother made the bed. At first glance, they were also brand new and bright clothes. Xiaolian used brightness as an indicator of preciousness. The dyeing and weaving technology at that time was like that. The cost of dyeing bright colors was not small. Either the dyes were expensive or the formulas were rare. Even if the dyeing workshops had good technology, they were reluctant to use particularly expensive dyes and formulas to dye coarse cloth. Therefore, good technology and good colors were reserved for precious fabrics such as silk and satin. The brightness of the color was basically proportional to the value of the fabric itself. In this comparison, because Li Ju himself liked to wear clothes that were resistant to dirt, he only had a lilac-colored robe that could be considered bright, and he had not worn it much, so Li Ju looked poorer than them. Because Li Ju did not expect to have someone move in early, the uniforms for the employees had not yet been made, so he had no choice but to bring a few Chinese tea house hotel waiter uniforms and ethnic style flowered cotton jackets from his hometown. Men's clothing, however, is in plain colors, but women's clothing is different. The flowered jackets are festive red with peony and phoenix patterns, in red and green, with Ruai style buttons. The other shirts and skirts are in bright purple, emerald and royal blue, which are eye-catching. Yu Yaoniang held up the pink cotton pants and the goose yellow acacia skirt and said, "Mom, I've never seen such beautiful clothes." Sanjiu took them and saw that there were some embroidery and prints on them. Although the workmanship was rough, the colors were all bright, and she didn't know what kind of technology was used to print so many colors. She also found it strange. Mom has never seen it either. Mom will alter your clothes first, and you can change into this one after you take a bath. It's so beautiful. Why is Master Li so good to us? I don't know if he is the same to other people. Yu Yaoniang said, my aunt's clothes are also very beautiful. I think the master treats us the same. Mom, let's not move out. I want to live here and serve the master well. Sanjiu was unsure. Hearing that her daughter had fallen for Li Ju's kindness, she couldn't help feeling annoyed, as if she saw herself in the future doing something bad because of her greed for wealth. But when she saw her daughter's pale face, withered hair, and hunched body, she felt guilty again. Her poor daughter has suffered so much. She was almost thrown out to feed the dogs by her grandmother when she was born. She hasn't eaten a meal of rice at home for several years. She has to fill her stomach with bran and rotten vegetable leaves. She has never worn a complete and warm piece of clothing. How old is she? What does she understand? What's wrong with wanting to have enough food and warm clothes? Sanjiu scratched her nose. Okay, we won't leave. We will serve the master all our lives. As long as the master is happy, we can live a good life forever. Now let's go fetch water and boil water for a bath. As she was talking, Yu Yaoniang knocked on the door. Sister Zhao, the master asked me to bring something over. This is for taking a bath and washing your hair, and this is for brushing your teeth. This is a pair of scissors that I use myself, so I'm giving it to you, sister. If your hair has lice, you'd better cut it. The master loves cleanliness the most. Even I shaved my hair the first time we met. Also, the drinking water must be boiled, and you must wash your hands before doing anything, and change your clothes when they are dirty. The master pays special attention to these things. Sister, you must not violate the master's taboos. Although she was surprised that Yu Yaoniang would take the initiative to tell her these, Sanjiu still happily took the things. Seeing that Yu Yaoniang still had several bath, hair, and teeth washing items in her hand, she guessed that she was going to give them to Chusen and the others, and hurriedly said, I'll take them. I need to go over there to boil water, and they have to go too. I'll give them to them in the kitchen. The master is so generous. I don't know how to repay the master's kindness. Yu Yaoniang looked at Sanjiu's pretty face and tall figure, and her heart was still sour. But she was an honest girl after all, and she was not old enough to be scheming, so she gave the things to her honestly, saying, just work hard. The master often said that he pays and I work, and it's only natural. I'll be more diligent and do more things, and the master will definitely be satisfied. Chapter 25 The First Meal. Yu Yaoniang sent the toiletries as Li Ju requested, and returned to the kitchen to help Li Ju conscientiously. Washing vegetables, cutting vegetables, scalding bowls with hot water. After 3 days of not seeing each other, Yu Yaoniang has become very skillful in cooking. Li Ju caught a clean chicken and fried it to make soup, and Yu Yaoniang watched the fire on the small stove. Li Ju roasted pig's feet, and Yu Yaoniang handed over the seasonings in order. Li Ju changed the stove to heat the pan to fry the lamb tripe, and Yu Yaoniang was beside him to serve the pig's feet. The cooperation was very smooth, and even the efficiency of cooking was improved a lot. Li Ju was obviously very satisfied with Yu Yaoniang's cooperation, and Yu Yaoniang was very happy. In any case, she was the first person brought back by Master Li, and also the most caring little cotton padded jacket of Master Li. For the first meal, Li Ju stewed a pot of chicken soup, a pot of pig's feet, steamed crucian carp, stir-fried lamb tripe, ate treasure duck, braised meat. The bowls were piled up. The staple food was not the common coarse grains such as beans and taro rice, but half white rice, and steamed with sweet potatoes, corn kernels, etc. A modern version of sweet and delicious coarse grain white rice. Yaoniang sniffed. She liked corn and sweet potatoes. They were sweet, like candy. Li Ju dug out a small sweet potato that was roasted till soft and juicy from the ashes, wrapped it in a clean cloth, and gave it to Yaoniang. Eat it while it's hot. Go see if they have finished cleaning up. If they have, ask them to serve the food. Move the chicken and pig's trotters over with the stove, and eat them while they are cooking, so they will be hot. Yaoniang happily held the sweet potato in her arms. I'll go right away. Ah, master, do you want some wine? I see other people drink at banquets. What the hell? Other people even ask little actors to perform at banquets. Do you want me to find a troupe too? They have a woman, a mute, and you have 4 children in total. Can you drink? Who should I drink with? Stop joking, go. After urging Yaoniang to leave, Li Ju returned to his room and changed into a scarf to wrap his hair, took off his outer shirt to prevent oil stains, and changed into a narrow-sleeved cotton jacket for home. He picked up the stove in his room and added some charcoal fire in the kitchen, then slowly walked to the main hall with the stove in one hand and the teapot in the other. The Mute and Chusen brothers had already finished washing up and were moving dishes to the main hall under the command of Yaoniang. The main hall was very large and could accommodate dozens of people standing at the same time, so it seemed a bit empty. Li Ju asked them to bring the food to the small room at the east end of the main hall, opened the window of the small room, put his stove under the table, and piled 3 stoves in the small room, and it became warm instantly. The Mute, Chusen and others set up the food, still feeling a little cramped. Li Ju knew that they would not sit down if he did not sit down, so he picked a seat under the window and sat down. Yaoniang hurriedly sat down next to Li Ju, and Li Ju asked the Mute and others to sit down, and they sat down carefully. All 3 of them had their hair cut off, and now they all had short hair that looked like it had been gnawed by a dog. Li Jiu thought about giving them a barber's clipper later, so that they could get rid of their stubble and completely get rid of lice. He also asked them if they needed anything short. The Mute couldn't speak, so he just shook his head. Chusen said shyly, Master, can I ask for a curtain? My brother and I are not young anymore, so we want to cover the window. Li Jiu said, that's easy. I'll buy some cloth tomorrow and ask Sanjiu, Xiaolian and Yaoniang to help sew some curtains and door curtains. Just as he was talking about this, Sanjiu also came with Xiaolian. The mother and daughter also had their hair cut, and each took a cotton and linen outer coat and put it on their heads. When the mother and daughter entered the door, they were stunned to see Yaoniang sitting together with the master, the Mute and others. Sanjiu bowed to Li Jiu first, called him master, and then shyly pulled her daughter to sit next to Yaoniang. Yaoniang took the initiative to explain to them, since we don't have enough time, we won't have 2 tables. Sisters Ao and I will also eat here. Don't be shy. Our master never has separate tables. We are few in number, so it will be more lively and warmer to sit together. Sanjiu was relaxed and just waited for Li Ju to pick up the pig's trotter with his chopsticks, and the others also picked up their bowls to pick up dishes and rice. Except for Li Ju and Yaoniang, the other 5 were very hungry. They had not seen meat for more than 10 years. Just looking at the trembling pieces of meat and the fragrant chicken soup, their eyes were about to grow hooks. They couldn't help but look at the dishes in the bowl while eating, for fear that if they picked up their chopsticks too late, the meat would be gone, and they were afraid that the mess would make the master unhappy. Li Ju had no problem with their wolfing down. When he was in the army, the total time for meals was so long. If he ate with his cheeks wide open, he would probably look uglier than these people. When on a mission, sometimes they didn't have anything to eat for a day or 2. On the 3rd day, they finally caught a rat or a water snake. They just processed it a little and ate it with the bones and meat. It was definitely not elegant. Li Ju finished 2 bowls of rice calmly and quickly and drank the chicken soup slowly. When the chicken soup was cold, he still had the leisure to advise them, eat slowly, don't choke, there are other things in the kitchen. Even if these are not enough, it's okay to have another meal. In the end, everyone didn't finish eating, and there was still a lot left, but everyone was so full that they could only stare at it. Li Ju estimated the amount, so how could he let them not be full? So he waved his hand and said, "You guys clean up by yourselves. If you haven't finished your meal, you can take your bowls home, and we'll send them back tomorrow. There won't be so many big dishes for dinner, but I promise that everyone will have meat every day and enough rice." After saying that, Li Ju felt that it was not good to have no one to register, so he said to Yaoniang, "Yaoniang, please remember who took what bowl and collect them all tomorrow. Also, teach them how to wash dishes and clean the kitchen so as not to pollute the water source. After you clean up here, Sister Zao, come find me and I'll get you to razors. Since your hair has been cut, you might as well shave it clean. You won't have to worry about it catching people's eyes when you wear a hat in winter. It should be several inches long by summer, and it will be easy to tie up and won't be a problem." Yaoniang nodded quickly, and when Li Ju returned to his room with the stove, Yaoniang unceremoniously acted as the boss. "Pick a bowl for yourselves to put the dishes, and take the rest with me to the sink for washing dishes. Brother Dalang and Brother Chusen fetch water, and Sister Zao and I will wash the dishes." The master also gave us soap nuts for washing dishes, and we wash them very cleanly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.